Hello and welcome back to Lore Hammer, the 40K podcast where we talk about hammers and lore. We smash them together as we often do. Hey Christian, how's it going?
Good.
You're here with me again, side by side. We're matching. For anyone watching the show, I tried to match Christian's outfit and I fucking nailed it.
I didn't even had no idea what I was wearing today.
No idea, but I nailed it right
Normally
down.
he calls me in the morning to ask me what I'm wearing.
Yo, let's go to the Games Workshop. What do you want to wear? Yeah, but welcome to the show. Good to have you. I've been told and whatever, James.
I'll show up.
I am the Mr. of Battle.
Mr. of Battle, eh?
That's still
okay.
I didn't come up with a new one last week, so I'm the Mr. of Battle yet again.
Good. Well, you can change that at any time, I've been told. So it's flip flop. Well, welcome to Lore Hammer. We got some housekeeping we'll jump into real quick. Space Marine 2, our Discord. People are playing on Saturday. Go jump in there, play. They play around noon, 3 p.m. Standard Central Time. Have you guys been following what happened in that game? I've been trying to intentionally avoid spoilers. And stuff.
I YouTubed the hell out of it.
Yeah.
After our failure to play.
I know how it kind of goes and ends, and I know some of the turns. I haven't watched it specifically through.
Okay.
But because it hurt too hard.
No.
You'll never recover.
Oh, the wound's too fresh. Yo, remember when we watched Ultramarine together?
Were you with us?
If we're gonna do it,
I thought
it was like a solid 4 out of 10.
That's generous.
I think it was a 4 out of 10. Eric's thought it was a 0 out of 10.
Yeah. Well, that's that. Well, we've had some fun times. Go hang out with Ultramarines, I guess, in Space Marine 2 on Saturday. Our Discord's a lot of fun. We've been doing some contests and stuff right now. We're just messing around with Warlords of Terra still. I think it was down to the last 2 people, and there's a tie. And then some other people voted. I'm not sure it's at. So go vote. I think it's pretty much coming to an end pretty quick here. The other thing, I was on a show the other day, a podcast called Funkatronic Rex podcast. They're pretty cool. They're just, they have a game store and they just talk 40K stuff. Very casual, a lot of fun. The guy, Court, I don't know if he's the leader, but I'm going to call him the ringleader.
He's the leader now.
Yeah, he is now. He has been dubbed that in my mind for sure. So he probably got bragging rights on that one. But yeah, great group of guys. We had a lot of laughs and we basically just talked about 40K, hobby and whatever.
Is it mostly rules and stuff, or did you talk lore? Or
honestly, it might sound weird, so I don't want to be too crazy, but he's like, yo, let me interview you. I want to know about Lore Hammer. What's the deep, dark secrets? Where the hell is Eric, he said. What did you do with his body? And we all know I ate him and fled the country to Panama. I'm only back here to return Eric back to his rightful place in the form of a poop. I took that one crazy. I didn't eat Eric. I didn't flee the country, though. Anyway, so that was a fun podcast, Funkatronic Rex podcast. Go check that out. What else do we have?
Yeah, so we love it if you join us in the live streams. We love the chats when people are in there messing it up. So join our Patreon and you can jump in and join us live. It's a lot of fun. We enjoy you guys being there. Also, I host a humble email address called jamescomplaints@gmail.com. If you have complaints about the show, positive, negative,
or about James explicitly.
Yeah, usually. I mean, it is James complaints, so theoretically they should be about me. But if you do have those complaints, send them to that email. Maybe I'll throw it in at the end of the episode. The funny ones I do read, and they're pretty good.
We did have this one really good James complaint. It was this whole rant about how we messed up Tau communism, blah, 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 blah. Huge 5,000 page document type thing.
Right. I don't know if that one got forwarded to me.
Yeah, no, I didn't even bother forwarding it to you. Right to the Discord. Yeah, this wasn't even worthy of a James complaint. You think I care what Tau are?
There's Xeno scum.
There's Xeno scum. But somebody sent us this really funny message. Let's see if we can find it here. So Sir Chonk's messages about that Tau commie episode was, my fishies are being their fishy selves and being goats. My fish goat space communists are not fit communists or fish, but they are still nice. Farsight managed to kill a bloodthirster with a critical damage to his suit while having a heart attack. World Eaters are red, plasma is blue, and the greater good is calling for you. So that's, I guess, my official response to that.
Excellent. Also, for patron members at a certain level, we invite you on to the end of the episode so you can chat in. You can leave your mark in the Lorehammer lore.
Yeah, you even get like a cool Discord tag. I created a little purple tag that people kind of can get that you've been on the show.
You can dunk it on people.
Exactly.
Yeah, and also if you like video, we put these videos on YouTube, so you can check those out. They release about the same time as the podcast, so you can check it out in either format you like.
Listen it at the same time on
Yeah,
both
do
platforms.
both.
Yeah,
Yeah, do both.
That's how you get surround
Pump
sound.
those numbers up. Come on. Sweet. And then lastly, let's shout out to our Patreon. We're almost able to afford a loaf of bread here in Canada, so please support the show because we are starving.
The problem is the bread keeps getting more expensive.
So we gotta keep hiking up the Patreon.
Yo, I bought a jug of milk the other day for $8.30. I don't know why you guys
Welcome
live
to
up here.
inflation.
There's a
Keep
reason why I moved to Panama and it wasn't what I tell everyone.
going. Our money is becoming toilet paper, so please send us more because
We need
pooping.
those.
We're
Because
pooping in the
we
economy.
pooping.
What do we want? Do we want yen? Do we want to link ourselves
Whatever
with the
you got,
Chinese
yeah.
or what currency
We
is?
take Bitcoin, we take
Bitcoin?
whatever you got.
Yeah.
So if you could help support the show, it helps us improve our quality. Maybe we'll pump out more content and actually show up once in a while.
Yeah. The benefits of joining too is you feel good about yourself. You've done something good for the world and yourself. Congratulations. No, but seriously, thanks everyone for donating bucks. Like we don't really give any benefits to anyone besides a pat on the back, really, but people still give money. So thanks a lot. We really do appreciate it.
We're not a registered charity.
Yeah.
But we could be.
I think we take pride in not being not putting things behind paywall.
Yeah.
If possible. Everyone can listen to everything that we've done for the most part. It's just mostly like people who want to be a part of it.
And just support the show.
Yeah.
Like
you
if
want
it's
to be
something you enjoy and
wanna
you
be a
listen
part of the
to.
video.
Yeah, that's always been a big thing, man. I've seen some podcasts where it's like, shit, you're telling me I could lock a Blood Angels episode behind a $3,000 paywall and get paid that? But that's greasy. Any podcast that does stuff like that is greasy.
Greasy.
That's like, yeah.
Do you want to start a podcast more?
Well, that's why they're not number one and Lorehammer is. So. All right, Leagues of Votann. Oh man, I've been playing Return to Moria for the last week. So I'm in the mood for dwarves.
You're in a
Dirty little mining men. I love them. Let's kind of go over some initial thoughts before we go into Votann, because they're pretty much the newest faction in 40K. And what's super unique about them too is while they have roots in old 40K, they are new. This is not like Gene Stealer cults where it's like, we get that. Yeah, now they got models. Like, great. This is not just like Primaris Marines where it's like, more Space Marines. It's not a Primarch. This is new lore. Even the Horus Heresy, in my mind, is not new lore. And they started writing that in 2010, and I didn't consider that new lore. Because we had books written about it before that I'd read how the Siege of Terra ended. So, to me, this is like the first real lore that they've written in a long time that is completely something fresh.
Yeah. It's like when they introduced Tal.
Exactly. Yeah. That would be another big one, So I haven't really done much reading on it beyond the last couple of days. I'm excited to see where this kind of goes and what we learned about them, really.
Yeah, same here. Like I come into this pretty blind because even I was surprised to realize that they've only been around for 2 years, which is even that's still pretty fresh. Like did their first novel even come out yet?
No,
if not, it's about to,
it's
right?
About to, yeah.
Like they don't even have a novel dedicated.
Yeah,
that's how fresh they are. So.
Yeah, there's some cool elements to them. They have a character that is a little they have a character that's unique to them in a lot of ways. They have some lore that kind of makes them fun to play around with. You can do some different stuff. They also have some stuff that I don't love about their lore, but I'm sure we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's dive in.
Yeah. Couple more thoughts. We did a couple episodes ago, but it was years ago for us in actual record time.
I think it's episode 95.
We did the squats, and we kind of had our own ideas of what would have been cool to happen to him.
So that episode came out before all the Votann stuff came out. So we were discussing if they ever brought squats back, what we would like to see, what that could look like. I always wanted them to riff more on the Hobbit and Thorin and Tolkien-esque dwarves reconquering their lands, because from the squats perspective, they pretty much what they call getting squatted is they were all eaten by Tyranids, and that was it. That's how they kind of erased them from the galaxy before.
Yeah.
They did not do that.
No.
I am not, unfortunately, working for GW, so they did not take my advice. So I have mixed feelings because I definitely had a way that I would have done it.
Yeah.
Well, when we get into the episode, I'll go a little more into like I've mixed feelings on their lore and mixed feelings on their models both. So
yeah, we'll get to it.
Yeah. When I was kind of doing my quick reading, I kind of summarized them in 5 kind of key points that I think we can kind of flash back to. Like, this was weird to write. Like, normally when I come up with a topic, I have 25 years of experience and knowledge I pull on. So these are some points, even when I was reading it, to try to refresh and kind of draw back to of the themes and the concepts. So kins and ancestors. The leagues of Votann are comprised of kin, a tough, pragmatic, and technologically advanced race of humanoids. They are essentially a reimagining of the ancient squats, space dwarves. The kin are bound by strong sense of loyalty to their clan and ancestors, and they are guided by ancient machines known as Votann, revered as wise and near godlike entities. So then this is where it kind of gets interesting, because, you know, we can all picture space dwarves, but then they introduce this like AI concept, essentially, of the ancestor cores. The Votann are ancient supercomputers known as ancestor cores, which hold vast repositories of knowledge.
I'm just here to guide him.
Yes,
through the words.
his finger is. You got this, little buddy.
You can do it.
That word is A. They serve as both the guiding intelligence and religious focal points for the kin. However, these machines have been around for so long that their processing is slowing down, causing the kin to guard them even more fiercely. The next thing is they're void-dwelling miners and warriors. That's kind of self-explanatory. You know, they're
dwarves.
They're dwarves
in space.
You always hear about those asteroids that are just like 100% gold. Like that one asteroid has more gold than all of Earth. Like they're mining that.
But the dumb thing about that is that if you did mine it, you would just actually reduce the value of gold on Earth. So
gold makes a good conductor, though, so it's valuable in and of
itself.
But
the more you have
diamonds,
supply, it drives it down. Diamonds are.
Oh yeah, no, you use them for like drilling.
Yeah, but you can actually manufacture diamonds. There's a whole thing about the diamond industry. Super corrupt. Super.
You guys ever watched the movie Blood Diamond with fucking what's his name? I don't know.
Keanu Reeves.
You know that's not right.
The guy from Titanic.
Shut up if you know it. Yes, that guy. The next thing about them to remember is they just have crazy technology. It's not on levels of Necron. Like, this is more believable. It's more like gravity waves and like you can understand the sci-fi jargon, almost maybe related to like Star Trek almost, and like Trekkie tech.
Trek tech.
Yeah, where it's like, yeah, that sounds like it could work, but
yeah, it's based off of things that have the real words in science, not just like Necron weird.
Yeah, or like the Imperium, where it's like, you know, they add anus on everything to make it magical. But so advanced tech, they're also pragmatic, not zealous. So this is kind of one thing that they kind of flipped about the dwarves. So unlike the Imperial Man, the kin are not religious zealots. They respect their ancestors and the Votann, but their approach to the galaxy is based on practicality and reason rather than blind faith. So typically dwarves are usually not like that necessarily. Like,
yeah, they're usually presented as like hotheads, very convicted with their ideals and very like protective of their stuff.
Yeah,
right? Because there's a crossing of.
I feel like pragmatic is like problem solving, almost like you see a problem and you fix it, and maybe that's just how I interpret it. But I don't know if like
pragmatic is like
practical.
It's
practical. Yeah. Okay, maybe I misinterpreted that a little bit then.
So like they see a problem, they're like, well, I this is the way that it should be done, and I can ditch my previous ways of doing things if this is better.
Okay,
but that's also not true for the Votann because they are known to be stubborn and very conservative and like.
Yeah.
The other thing too with the dwarves specifically is there's always this element of ancestor worship.
Yeah,
and they introduce that like instead they worship their machine cores. And again, like, is that like a religious? For some, I think it is religious. For others, it's like again more practical. Like you're not worshiping your ancestors, but it makes sense because they have all the knowledge, the community knowledge of your race. So then you kind of
there's some apparent contradictions in the and I'm not saying that's a bad thing because contradictions are present in everybody's daily life and how we interact with lots of things. We are inherently contradictory in a lot of things. No one's coherent all the way across. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but there is like these like maybe tensions is another way of putting it between like the fact they're religious, but like they also really care about getting things done on a practical level. And they they're all about ancestor worship, but they're not really super zealous in that sense. So like it's kind of maybe some tensions pulling them in a little.
So this is kind of my thoughts on that. Is one of the things you kind of glossed over there with the cores is that when you die, your knowledge is uploaded into this core. And it's because they keep doing this that the cores are slowing down, because it's just more data sets, right? Like you have a computer with limited hard drive space.
Yeah, and like ultimately, how different are all our lives? And you keep uploading.
Right, exactly. They keep replicating the same stuff, and it slows it down.
Yeah.
So again, that kind of the element of like ancestor worship is like there is a practicality in the way they do it, because they're not just, you know, it's not a mystical prayer to like ancestors that might be in heaven that might hear you and might influence your life. It's like, no, they actually respect this body of knowledge that's passed down, because it literally is. Now, to me, my issue with it is that it sounds too much like the Eldar soul circuit.
Yeah, the soul stones and the infinity.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a theme of this episode is, hey, this is kind of like this other bit of lore that exists.
Yeah, even we'll get to the ancestor cores, and I just keep thinking the Necron tomb worlds and like their core cores that controls everything around them, and like
but that's what I mean by like that. Yeah. Like it is a practical version of ancestor worship, because it kind of does make sense in a practical way, right? Like it's not just vague worship of ancestors. There is a knowledge there that they have accumulated over time that does work.
Yeah. So that blends the practical with the
religious.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. It's like doing like a prayer to hit the on button of your machine. Well, you can skip the prayer and just hit the on button, right? That's not practical. But let's say the invocation did something, like maybe you
like
put sacred oils on a machine. Well, that actually does something.
That's WD-40.
Right, exactly. But you know, you just turned it into a religious experience. So it's more of a practical religious thing, right? Same thing like in ancient times when people like don't eat this kind of meat. Well, for like on a religious context, like, okay, why not? Like it's everywhere. But the practical side was like, okay, well, maybe they're really dirty animals, like they're carry-on birds.
Right?
Don't eat vultures because you'll get sick.
Have you seen what bears are gross? Don't eat bear.
I hear if they eat blueberries, they're delicious.
Thank you, Joe Rogan, on that.
I don't like eating other predators.
Then they'll come for you.
It's a sign of respect.
I heard if you eat a dog, other dogs will smell that you ate a dog, and other dogs won't like you.
They'll know.
So since we're just
that's not practical religion, Mark. There's no practicality in that,
but it is science. So as I see it, okay. Let's carry on about these little dwarven boys. The Leagues of Votann are the iron-wrought bastions of the kin, a race of short, broad-shouldered abhumans, cloned, engineered for resilience. They call themselves the kin, though the humans of the Imperium, with their dismissive arrogance, often label them squats.
That's a racial slur.
Oh shoot, am I in trouble now? Oh no. The kin are technologically sophisticated, spacefaring civilization, dwelling in a harsh, resource-laden world of the galactic core. Their society is intertwined with Ironkin, sentient robotic constructs that they regard as equals, blurring the line between flesh and steel in a symbiosis of life and machine.
Okay, so this is one part that is an interesting deviation from basically all other lore in 40K. Basically, everything treats AI as dangerous.
Sure.
Everything.
Except for Necron.
Well, Necron are
the AI.
Yeah.
They're the danger.
but even in their case, the AIs are not like sentient as much as just like they're the souls or whatever of the Necron.
Yeah, but even
in their bodies,
they're more of an autonomous system, but the Necron are the ones in control.
Yes, exactly. So I don't count that as the same thing. Everything else treats AIs as dangerous, except for the squats now are living in harmony with them, which is
there has to be at least one good outcome of all the AI. You know, you roll that 100 times that dice, eventually you're going to roll a 6.
Sure. I mean, maybe. That could like lead to some questions of like, okay, is it really the leagues that are of Votann that are they just the bodies that the AIs are using as their like fodder or something?
Yeah.
It does leave that up a little more to interpretation, but
I think we'll have a good AI talk at the end of this episode where we can kind of like, okay, so what is that relationship really? Where did this AI come from?
Who's really in charge?
Yeah.
Who's really?
Because for it to be grimdark, for it to fit with the setting, there has to be some sort of tension in that. They can't just be, we work in perfect harmony and it's
with
totally
machines.
fine.
Yeah.
I will say also Tau suffer from that because they do actually have AI systems that they also trust. And there's this whole even
Right, but they're
theory.
not- are they sentient?
Hard to say because there's a
I
theory
feel
that
like those-
says that the Tau are controlled by AI. That there's an AI
Sure.
construct that took over an Ethereal's like hologram projection.
If that is
And
if that is the
ruling through the
interpretation
Ethereal.
that they're controlled by, I'm fine with that because then that's a tension that can stay in where there's this battle between AI and humanity that is
Well,
maintained throughout everything.
Are Tau really humanity?
Well, between AI
Sentient
and sentient
species.
life,
Yeah.
there's
They're
this
commie
tension.
fish goats, people.
Get with the
So
program.
my point is just that this is a deviation in the ways,
Yeah.
because I'm pretty sure from what I've read in the codexes, it is like they live in harmony is the way it's described.
Even the one difference too between, I think we'll get into it, the difference between these two AI, like the Tau, it's prompt AI. So you have to prompt it. You got to program that AI. Where this is free thinking.
It's like AI that we have now.
Yeah, exactly. Versus actual true, like
Sentient.
it will prompt itself. It will all of a sudden be thinking about something far away in space and be like, that would be cool to get out of nowhere.
It's thinking ahead and it's
Yeah.
creating its own ideas.
Yeah, so I think that's how I kind of differentiate those two.
too.
But this is like a unique one, like, and they are humans, and we'll get into it a little bit more. Where did this come from? Each League of Votann is a vast and mighty stellar dominion, divided into clan-like entities known as kindreds. At the apex of each league stands the Votann, or Ancestor Core, a self-aware machine intelligence revered with near religious fervor. When a kin or ironclad, or ironkin, meets their end, their cerebral data is uploaded into the Votann, a sacred ritual known as the returning to the ancestors. This act weaves a tapestry of knowledge and experience, reinforcing the Votann with wisdom of countless generations.
This I think is cool because it kind of blends the idea of the religious sense into like it's actually happening.
Yeah.
Which I think is a kind of fun way to play with it. I like the idea that like I'm going to be with my ancestors when I die.
Yeah.
It's not
It's not like a metaphysical statement. It's like this
it's
is
like
actually
literally
happening.
going to happen.
Yeah.
Which I
My
think is
brain
kinda
is being
cool.
uploaded into a giant machine with all my
Yay.
ancestors.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
like I
did
mean,
Elon Musk write this or something? Like, holy fuck. For beings in the galaxy few beings in the galaxy can match the sheer tenacity, valor, and impeccable resolve of the kin. They are a force of nature on the battlefield, a relentless avalanche of armored might that grinds all opposition into dust. To the kin, enemies are a mere obstacle to be crushed or adversaries to be obliterated. Assessed with cold, calculating logic, in war, they embody the ruthless calculus, weighing the risks and rewards with dispassionate precision that only centuries of survival in the Galactic's core's unforgiving crucible can forge.
Yeah, so that's their kind of way of saying, well, where have these guys been? Well, no one else can get to the galactic core but them for some reason.
And the Tyranids.
And yeah. Well, they came up and
the Necrons could be there too.
Yeah.
Obviously.
No, they were already there. They've always been there.
As allies or trade partners, the kin are steadfast and invaluable. However, to those who threaten their existence, they become merciless scourge. They eradicate their foes with the unyielding rigor they apply to harvesting the lethal forces of the black hole acceleratron disks. Accretion disks. Science words. They're just all made up ultimately. Or crafting their extraordinary.
That one's not even a weird word.
Extraordinary technologies. Gotcha. Did you believe me that I can't read? I could read this whole time. The Leagues of Votann are not just star empires. They are monolithic, united by the common ancestry, genetic code, and indomitable culture. With the emergence of the Great Rift, the galaxy is convulsing in turmoil, and the Leagues of Votann find themselves clashing more violently than ever with other starfaring races. In this age of conflict, the kin rise from the galactic core like a tidal wave of cold, metallic wrath, ready to carve their legacy into the stars.
Yeah, interesting. Like I like the idea that they're being forced out from the core by the rift. That kind of makes sense as to like a catalyst for them being them changing their behavior. That kind of works.
Yeah. And they kind of, so before they released the full Votann stuff, they did like little previews. They dropped a couple of squats into Necromunda. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have said into Necromunda. Like they didn't release them yet.
Yeah.
They were kind of like a preview. And so they kind of like retroactively incorporated that there's like mercenary. I keep wanting to say squats.
Well, what's like the most offensive abhuman term? Squat, maybe
Who knows?
bendies. There's some.
Bendy.
I'll look it up. I'll look.
We should have an episode just on 40k slurs.
40K slurs.
But anyways, they
He's googling it. You
I
can
know
still
I
talk.
was looking at the notes. I was distracted. Yeah, they have these like nomadic aspects and mercenary aspects. So there's some clans or kin, I can't remember what grouping size that can go and do mercenary work. And some of them come back with that information back to their home league and upload all that data into these big machine cores when they die. Or if they're exiled from, we might get into that in the notes. Sorry, I didn't read ahead. If they're exiled, then they're permanently kicked out of their kin and they're just wandering the galaxy as like a nomad, as an individual or small group.
Yeah, which again, I like the idea of these guys just like hauling around as traders, because like they are still human, even though they're like a deviation. But
so the funny thing, well, we'll get into it.
We'll get into it. Okay.
Well, I found some more slurs for us here. Nightsiders, for people who live on the far side of the planet who don't get any sun. Yeah.
Oh, some of those exist on Earth.
yeah.
We just call them blade switch dwellers.
Exactly. The ratlings are the Homo sapien minimus. So that just
sounds like the scientific thing.
Scalies, if you got dry skin, I guess. We got the squats. Subs. What are subs?
Oh, we can't talk about that.
Oh, that we won't. Okay.
Family podcast.
Okay, let's close this down. Back to the notes.
All right, let's get into some of the history, and maybe some of the stuff I was going to mention is in here. For millennia, the leagues of Votann have plundered the treasures of the galactic core, carving a realm of prosperity amidst the cosmic chaos. In the heart of the tumultuous region, they have clashed with many of the galaxy's starfaring species, sometimes offering their martial prowess as mercenaries, other times engaging in calculated trade. Yet, as the galaxy writhes under the eruption of the Great Rift in the Era Indomitus, the kin face an era of unprecedented challenges and wars anew. Yeah, so the one interesting component about them is that they can sometimes be friendly and sometimes be enemies, which is not common in 40k. Typically, everyone's the enemy.
Sure.
But they can resort to trade if that makes more sense to them.
Yeah, like the Tau, you can approach them in good faith every time and know that you're not, like, you can go to them and try to make a deal every time. But these guys might not want to that day. Yeah,
exactly. Or for whatever reason, they've calculated, like, yeah, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Or you're actually a threat.
Yeah.
And the Eldar, if you always make deals with them, they're just using you.
Yeah, exactly.
The kin are a race of squat, powerfully built humanoids, their stature belying a resilience honed over countless generations.
Honed, I like that word. That body is powerfully built.
It is. That's what peak performance. You may not like it, but that's what peak performance looks
They're
like.
doing flips and shit. Like
they inhabit the core worlds in vast numbers, not as populous as the swarming masses of humanity, but far more entrenched in the fledgling Tau or the dwindling Eldari. Engineered as a clone species, each new generation of kin is meticulously crafted in the crucibles, artificial wombs that draw upon vast repositories of genomic data to create a populace that is stable, varied, and robust. Supplementing their numbers are the Ironkin, sentient machine intelligences encased in mechanical forms. Their dedication to their flesh and blood counterparts unwavering. To the kin, the Ironkin are not mere tools, but equal members of their society, steadfast in peace and warlike. So we mentioned this a couple times, but we haven't really addressed it yet, is that they are clones.
Yeah.
It's cool. I don't know if it's just because I like clone troopers, but I do. I always like genetic manipulation and stuff in sci-fi, and I don't think we've seen that. We've seen like Tyranids, but we haven't seen like like more artificial engineering.
I agree with you. I kind of like the clone element too. I like the fact that they're squat. It's kind of silly to say, oh, they're squat because they're in the galactic core and it's more gravity there.
Yeah,
that's silly. But also, I like that at least it's like it's trying to make sense of why are the way they are. It's not just
why are Ogrins big? Why are
it actually is tied into who they are a little bit and where they're from and what they're doing. Yeah, they're miners, so like being squat might be helpful. You don't have to make
go
your
into
shaft
tunnels
as big.
now,
or they're on high gravity, so they don't need as much. Their mass is distributed in a way that's helpful with that. I like those things being incorporated into why they are the way they are. The clone part is cool as well. I also like that because there's not really anything else like it.
There aren't a lot of clones in 40k, really. You got like the Krieg, but even they aren't clones. Yeah. They're
Vat born. Well, there's like a couple things that are interesting about it. Number one is, okay, we've talked about a lot how being a clone kind of does something with your soul a little bit. Like there's something
there's like
to that
a unlucky...
diminishes the soul a little bit.
With specifically human clones.
Right. Well, I mean, I'd be curious why that wouldn't apply here, because even Primarchs are susceptible to that.
Yeah, so with the Votann, they do have like an inherent warp resistance too that's like engineered into them, which is also kind of like a trademark dwarf thing. Dwarves are inherently resistant to magic. So like, does that make them resistant to the side effect of being unlucky? Because is that the warp element that's
maybe you could say it that way.
Now, flip side to that is, I mean, in practical terms, the Votann are unlucky because they are kind of another one of those dying races. They seem to have a lot of bad luck. Maybe they are getting manipulated by AI and being used. So maybe all that is like a whole curse on their whole people.
Or if maybe they don't need souls because they are just
empty husks.
Empty husks for the Votann.
Ugh.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I was gonna make another point there and I totally lost it.
Yeah, it does take the thing about clones is it gives them the advantage of, okay, this model, I thought this guy died 5,000 times. Well, he's
the same guy.
I mean,
my whole army is the same guy. You can do the same head bit on all of them.
Yeah, you make each guy an individual, and then you die in a battle. It's like, well, that's just the clone.
Yeah,
he's just
the clone version.
The other thing I was going to mention is that squats still exist. Like, squats are the race. The Leagues of Votann are like a sub faction of that race,
right? Because they're
they're the most
humans
dominant.
Are the race. Because...
Okay, yes, and that's the other thing is
there's squats still that fight for the Imperium too, that are not even.
Yeah, so this is where they get kind of weird, and this is the unique aspect of that mercenary work I was saying. Are they humans strictly speaking? They came from humanity, but through the natural forces on them that made them into squats, like being in the core and stuff that you mentioned, and then the extra layer of genetic manipulation that's actually being they're actually being manipulated through these crucibles. They're being engineered to be a certain way. Like, at what point do they become removed from humanity? And the Imperium even struggles with that. So you have some Inquisitors that deem them as Xenos. They're like, they're too far away from the human genome.
Right.
They're a different species. They need to be exterminated. And then you have others that are just treat them like any other abhuman faction, which you see like Ratlings and Ogrins getting recruited into the Imperial Guard. So they're that friendly with them. They're not maybe seen the same as a regular human, right? They're like muties or whatever, but they're better than a Xenos.
Right.
You and
there's
slurs. There's some goodness.
Tension definitely between these two, which is definitely an interesting aspect of them. I think that like the fundamental question usually is something the same species is, could it reproduce together?
Well, these guys can't even reproduce themselves.
So like
interesting.
Then maybe you would deem the Votann at least.
Are you joining the Radical Inquisitors?
Well, I mean, I'm just saying if they can't reproduce with humans, then they would be another species.
So
and
basement dwellers where are they on the scale of this?
Well, if you can't reproduce at all, I don't know what that means. But yeah.
And in this case, they've actually lost the ability to reproduce. So it's not even just that they prefer to be cloned; it's that's the only way they can continue.
But are there any female Votann?
Yes, actually, the models say so.
That is an interesting aspect. What does that mean? Like they wouldn't.
Why would they have?
They wouldn't have gendered, would they?
Well, again, like if this is the only way they reproduce, then no, unless they cloned the initial stock of whoever.
Yeah, and maybe they just do that out of habit.
Yeah,
then they.
But at some point, there would be no need to have any dimorphic sex because you don't reproduce.
And like if you're pragmatic, like they claim to be,
they would remove all the extra parts.
They would remove the extra parts.
You'd remove all reproductive organs.
It's tough cram those big old dwarf jugs into
power armor.
Yeah, into power armor, man. Telling you, those thighs, man, thunder thighs.
Thighs. All right. Yeah, the other thing I was going to mention is they have that inherent warp resistance, and also they, like, again, with that genetic tampering, they've like given themselves better attributes. So like, they're stronger. Yeah, they can survive things that probably humans couldn't. Baseline humans couldn't.
Yeah, their
tougher
bones,
skin,
bones won't
denser
break.
bones. Yeah, like,
I have a feeling that the lore around being resistant to chaos is gonna change at some point. because they'll release a
Chaos
like
Dwarves.
a Chaos Dwarf.
I don't know, man. Like,
If they still haven't released them for fantasy, they're not going to release them.
well, they just got a Blood Bowl team.
Oh, no.
actually.
They're coming.
But like, no,
well,
here's my thought. Like, so yeah, if they were Imperium, sure, they would get one. They'd get like traders, but we don't get Chaos Eldar. We
do have Chaos Eldar. That's usually what Dark Eldar are.
No. That they're
But
very
they're-
different.
no,
like,
but
I know,
Dark
they
Eldar
those-
are
strictly
not.
speaking, they're not. But that
But
is
like on
the-
paper, they are the spiky Eldar.
Yes.
The same way they're spiky Space Marines. They're
Yes.
Yeah.
So here's how I would suspect.
Not everything has that though. Like Necron don't have that. Tyranids don't have that. Tau don't have that. Like a lot
Tyranids
of
now
them.
have those like messed up.
Yes, they have the
Rejects.
gene stealers that are all mutated by the. Is it the warp though? I don't
Just
know.
the radiation, I think.
Just
But that's equivalent to the warp for like a biological species, right? It messes with it mutates you the same way that like warp energy would.
I don't know if that would, like, you might say the warp would be like a magical, or as you said, what did you say, meta change,
Metaphysical.
a metaphysical change, whereas radiation would be a purely physical change. So you could make an argument.
One corrupts your soul and one corrupts your body.
Yeah. Well, I think
No.
I
No,
just
radiation
have a
just gives you cancer, James.
and
They probably won't
then you
release-
die horrifically.
They probably won't release a
Jeez.
whole army of Chaos Dwarves unless it was super called for, and I doubt it would be. But a kill team, I could totally see them doing.
Or even,
Chaos
like,
Dwarf
The
kill
excuse for someone to do it at home, right? Like that's
Yeah.
totally something I was
Yeah.
for, is the opposite version to make my own. And in any case, if they did that, which I don't suspect they would, but if they did, one way to play it would be like the pragmatic aspect. So who else is super pragmatic and very dwarf-like? Iron Warriors, who don't explicitly worship chaos. They use chaos as a tool. So it could be a faction of dwarves who maybe aren't as corrupted as someone who's given their soul to chaos, but it's more like chaos is a tool to achieve an end.
Everybody who uses chaos thinks that they're just
Right.
using it.
And that's exactly the point. This is how they would get corrupted. So it's not
Sure.
that they were tempted or like,
Oh, they think I'm
How about
the one
this?
really controlling.
right,
chaos.
exactly. And that's how
There's
you would
one
do it.
bad guy in the warp who made, I don't know, let's just say some rings. And he gave some rings to the Eldari.
7 to the dwarf.
And he gave some to
Votann,
the
sorry.
Squats. But here's what he did. He kept one ring for himself.
to control all the other.
Exactly. So
Oh
that's
my
how,
gosh.
if anything happens, that's what needs
That's
to
how
happen
it's gonna go
for
down.
the Chaos guys.
It's a chaos lord.
Yeah.
All right.
You'd buy a chaos. You'd buy a chaos dwarf model. Don't lie to me.
I would buy one.
Yeah, I know you would.
No, actually, I have a whole thing about these models, which I'm not super enthused by.
We'll get to it.
We'll get to the hate. Don't worry.
All right. The resilience of the kin is a rare commodity in the galaxy of horrors. Few species can match their indomitable spirit, their bodies and minds forged in the fires of adversity. They are stubborn, unyielding people, resistant to change and staunch in their convictions. Once they set their path, it takes a monumental force to divert them. A feat outsiders seldom accomplish. That makes kin formidable enemies, for they pursue their objectives with a tenacity that is all but impossible to deter. Conversely, their allegiance is a rare treasure, one not easily secured. The kin are guided by a stringent code of familial duty and the imperative of their species' survival. Should the motivations of others diverge from these guiding principles, they are more likely to brand them as adversaries rather than allies.
Man, I used to not really care what happened to humanity, but now after almost having a kid here,
Yeah.
getting close to it. What was the one line I kind of really liked? Stringent code of familial duty and the imperative for the species' survival. Yeah, humanity is lacking that aspect right now. It seems a little bit, but carry on.
Yeah.
It's a strong force. So, like me and you, we used to always talk, Christian, about, because you've been a dad for many years, and we talked about legacy for a long time. I used to always make fun of you for it, but like it's a strong pull, and it's cool how these people really tap into that.
Yeah, and it ties into their themes like ancestry and like where we come from, and it's again that practical aspect. So some people exist,
even like the Imperium. Yeah, they might have like honor the past, but it's like I'm a part of the KGN 92nd. It's not like it's Imperium related, not so much like personal or familial.
Yeah, it's more nationalist versus
family.
Yeah, maybe this is like closely because there's dwarves are kind of pulled from like some Nordic culture, but also some Scottish culture, and you can kind
the
of
clan system.
This kind of has that clannish Scottish vibe too, so that might be part of the inspiration for some of the way these are treated as well.
Yeah. I was going to mention something about like the whole legacy thing. Oh yeah, the reason why they clone themselves too, and they are kind of like one of these dying races, is that they cannot no longer reproduce themselves naturally. So that does become important to them culturally as much as like practically. Once again, you have that like, you know, you could be obsessed with legacy to the point that it's impractical, right? Like, say you're a multimillionaire, but you refuse to spend a single dollar because you want to pass it all down to your kids, so you live like a hermit, right? Like, there's a way to take that too far in a direction. But the practical component of that is like, okay, literally we can't reproduce anymore, so we have to be super careful and like really honor where we came from and understand the ways that kept us alive in order to continue to survive, right? Yeah. Like that makes sense. And that also comes from like a past tradition that we don't have so much in modern society anymore, because a lot of our culture and stuff is passed down through survival. Like, you have to do this way because that's how you survive. You have to cook your meat because you'll get rabies and die. Right?
Sure.
Like, these like traditional aspects do have a practical component, even if you may not necessarily see it there.
Well, that's interesting you put it that way, because like, what are the most traditions around are food. Like, so much of a culture's tradition is around preparing food and making sure it's proper,
because of generations of people that poison themselves, getting to the body of knowledge that we pass down now culturally. So originating from void-born mining fleets, the kin have developed an unforgiving moral compass. In the cold void, the smallest mistake, a filter not changed, a seam left weak, a water tank leaking, can spell doom. Every resource is vital, every task critical. To neglect the riches of a stellar body, an asteroid field, or particulate belt is to risk the very survival of a void ship, its systems and its crew. Waste, idleness, and even the slightest error are seen not merely as faults, but as cardinal sins, each one potentially damning an entire vessel to oblivion. So yeah, I really like that cultural component too. Like, it makes sense for a people who like live in a harsh galaxy. Everything, survival depends on everyone pulling their weight. If you're the slacker, not only are you irresponsible, you're dangerous, and you're even like a moral failure too.
Did you guys ever watch Battlestar Galactica or Battlefleet Galactica or whatever?
Battlestar Galactica,
basically, it's like a fleet flying through space, and they keep coming up stuff, and they have to make those tough choices where it's like there's no room for weakness here. Very similar.
Everyone pulls their weight.
Everyone is,
and again, it becomes like a moral duty, not just
because that one slight miscalculation literally just costs so much resources that now the ship is fucked.
Exactly. And that's cool because it also ties into like why they're so upset. Like, dwarves are miners and they're constantly looking for riches. In this case, they're constantly looking for resources to keep themselves going, right? So what might be perceived as stinginess or like greed from an outsider, to them is like, no man, like, it's like people who survived through the Great Depression. Like, they're like hoarders now, because they lived through a time where everything was so precious, they had to reuse everything that they had. So it's like, oh, I might need that one day kind of mentality. And that kind of ingrained itself in them even after scarcity no longer exists. They still kept that mindset, right? So it's the same idea with them, is that they're always like, all resources are valuable no matter what. Everyone pulls their weight. Everything needs to be like calculated to the nth degree for our survival, for our people's survival. So it's really cool how they tie it all together. I do appreciate that. The themes like work together. From the harsh crucible of existence has emerged the kin's rugged survivalist culture. There are people unified by the relentless pursuit of the resources of their kindreds need to endure. This unyielding drive for acquisition has led to many to judge the kin harshly, branding them as selfish hoarders, blind to the context of their struggle. Yet for the kin, this is not mere greed, it is survival, a grim necessity born from the vastness of the void and the ceaseless threats it harbors. As the galaxy churns in those throes of the Great Rift, the kin stand resolute, a testament to the resilience and indomitable will forged in the heart of the galactic core. So everything I didn't read the paragraph after, so I kind of spoke earlier.
But it is kind of goes back to like a core concept of them that maybe I should have added. Like, what is their motivation? I think it is survival. It's not like the Imperium where it's you could say it's expansionist or even religious.
Conquest,
it's not chaos,
subjugation.
Subjugation or destruction. This is survival.
Cool. Yeah. Well, let's jump into the origins. Where do these guys come from? It is whispered among the kin that the ancestor cores may hold the entirety of their history, every event recorded since the dawn of their kind. Yet, if such chronicles exist, they are likely buried beneath layers of encryption and the weight of millennia, lost to time and technology alike. Even the meticulous kin have resigned themselves to the reality that, beyond a certain point, their history dissolves into the fog of myth and legend.
It's too bad that it's called cores. Like, the Book of Grudges. sounds cool, but the core of grudges not
as
as
cool.
doesn't hit as well.
Sounds
The
too
data
nerdy.
slate of grudges. Not as
The
The
tone.
external
the
hard
to-
drive.
See, but then now it's like
We're back to
fantasy
books,
again,
yeah.
back to pen and paper.
Well, it kind of like tomes is just a descript. Is like, I mean, it is a thing, but like
It
you
holds
could use it
knowledge.
as a descriptor, right?
We'll
Like,
use it as a placeholder till we find something better.
Sure.
I don't mind tome.
Don't.
I'm gonna call my hard drives tomes.
Yeah. What would your job say if you walked in and started calling stuff like that? Okay,
Just drag everything down.
I reformatted my tome this morning.
Hand it off.
The
you.
machine spirit speaks.
There's enough 40k fans at my job that I'd probably be able to get away with it. The leagues of Votann derive their name from the Votann itself, an enigmatic figure. Everything's enigmatic. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Everything.
Hey man, sometimes I find a word and I just stick to it.
They are revered as the primal ancestors, the Gilded One or the Stone Mind. In some ancient tales, Votann is not a singular entity but a multitude, depicted as a group of radiant golden beings or as a circle of carved stone faces, each etched with the wisdom of aeons. Other myths tell of a Votann as the creator of the first crucibles, who molded the kin and cast them into the dark void, only for seas of flame and flesh to rise against them. In some legends, Votann stand as the earliest or eldest of the first ancestors, nebulous figures shrouded in a shadow of ambiguity, represented in diverse forms, both humanoid and alien, if they're depicted at all. So basically, they don't know what they are. They could be lots of things. Like they could be the first Votann themselves. They could be the creators of the Votann. They could be,
Sure.
like, they could just be the amalgamation of all of the
Yeah.
Votann. And that just has become an AI. Who
It
knows?
could be like even like a fucking runaway STC type thing. Like this STC was just an AI.
Especially since they're built out of clones, so it like creates an artificial history for them. It gets access to squad DNA, it starts cloning them, and then gives them this whole legacy and everything, and like it's all made up. None of it is real. I do also just kind of looping in the Tolkien thing again is like the crucibles and stuff that dwarves are like fashioned out of clay. I forget what Maya did that, and then they get given life, so it's kind of like a way of like they're manufactured too, not out of stone, but like out of genetics. But same kind of idea is that making aspect of it, they're made rather than born. But...
Yeah. The kin, ever pragmatic, recognize that their legends are riddled with contradictions, allegories, and fabrications. They do not delude themselves into seeking absolute truths within these myths. Their traditions are steeped in realism, and they feel no compulsion to shield themselves with the armor of faith, as the humans do. The inexplicable does not terrify them. They confront reality as they perceive it. If they are enigmas in the ancient past beyond their grasp, the kin accept them with stoic indifference, unless these mysteries resurface with immediate relevance. So, like, that's an interesting thing. Like, we talked about how they're resistant to chaos, but it sounds like they're also resistant to faith. And so, like, the Sisters of Battle and the way they're able to like actively remove chaos from places with their faith, or like because there's crazy stories of sisters being able to like just defeat things that would have killed a space marine just because of their faith, or they're able to repel it with that.
Almost like picture that as like a latent psychic effect that like it's almost even like the Orc Wog effect, where enough people are believing in this thing technically, so there's like power there for them, so they have like this kind of power that's built up with all these sisters praying for them, so they tap into it a little bit. But
maybe
but however you describe it, like so if they're resistant to warp, and then like the sisters are also, you know, maybe tapping into the warp, like can you tap into it and still be resistant?
So are they more like nulls then, though,
or like tyranny?
What I'm thinking is they're more like what are the I'm blanking. What are the
blanks? Dogs.
The fish.
Blanks.
What are the fish?
Custom.
The fish?
Tau.
That's the one. I don't know what. They're more like Tau in that they might just not have the soul in the warp as deep as everything else, because that would explain both ways. Like they don't have a lot of dramatic entry into the warp either direction. But
and if they are clones, like maybe that's the whole thing. Like
souls.
So
do they have psychers? I know they have like things that act like psychics.
Yeah,
but
I don't know. this is all new to me, so I haven't done enough deep diving. Because I know there's like a stone mage looking guy who's like floating, looks almost like a
Got
librarian.
wizards kind of looking
Yeah,
things.
but like, what is he actually? Is he using tech? Is he using some kind of warp element? I don't know.
Yeah, you see the glyphs or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we get to it in this episode. When I was breaking down kind of how I want to do episodes for these guys, we're just doing the origins and kind of the very history
high
bit
level
of it.
stuff. So yeah, maybe we'll delve into it.
Yeah,
Like
I mean, it's all
factions.
interesting to bring up though, because there's this new lore. There's so many angles that you can start going at it from.
I really didn't know where to go, and like I know you were saying, Christian, there wasn't a lot of information. I found though. Yes, it wasn't a lot, but there was still a surprising amount.
I would say there's not a lot relative to other factions that have been
Exactly.
around for like 40 plus, 50 plus years.
Yeah, and I think I knew what you're trying to say there for sure. But yeah, lots to kind of go over. No tech in this one really, though.
We'll get it next time.
Cool.
We'll get him next time.
Nevertheless,
Soon.
the Grimnar, the kin's spiritual guides, persist in their quest to commune with the ancestor cores, attempting to pose the right inquiries that might unlock fragments of their forgotten past. The pursuit is driven more by a desire for completeness and intellectual curiosity than by an existential yearning for answers. To the Grimnar, the pursuit of knowledge is a labor of dedication rather than of dire necessity.
So that might be what we're talking about, is those quote unquote spiritual guides. It's more like they're prompting their AI machine to give them the information that's like, like, maybe try this sequence of queries rather than that sequence.
Yeah, it's like talking to a chatbot.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they're doing essentially, is like,
chatbot, what is the origin of our species?
right, it's literally what, like in practical terms, what they're doing.
I like it. I should try it. Might learn a lot about
where
myself.
did I come from?
Who am I?
Give me meaning.
Where did this baby come from?
How are babies made? Oh.
Oh God.
We got a comment. He does look like a wizard, the dwarf magic man. He looks like he uses tech more than psychic powers. That's canon.
That is canon.
I mean, that it's I don't know. I'd have to dive into that aspect myself to
know for sure.
Yeah.
We'll keep reading. We might find the answers we seek.
Among the myths and legends, there remain certain tenets the kin hold as indisputable. These are the first truths. It is the first truth that their earliest ancestors embarked from the kin's original homeworld, likely pre-imperial Terra during the age of technology, aboard the sublight interstellar generation ships known as Long March vessels. Another first truth asserts that the kin were cloned beings from their inception, accompanied by the Iron Kin since their earliest epochs.
That sounds like a lie a machine would make.
Furthermore, it is the first truth that the ancestors were miners, prospectors, and void dredgers, tasked with harvesting the celestial riches scattered across the stars. So yeah, like, I mean, they have these first truths, but like, if you don't, like, what are you basing these off of if you don't know? Everything's all...
Well, like we kind of keep going back to talking to a chatbot, and like, yeah, you can know some basic things, but even the way the chatbot tells you the first truth every time, it's going to be slightly different. Like, yeah, the truth of the matter will be different, but he's going to use slightly different words to describe it. Maybe he'll use a different emotion because he's tapped into somebody else's kind of core emotion and character when he's describing it this time.
Right, because and the thing too is, if it's built on these generations and generations of kin, like if they all believed it, like the way, like who knows how this thing works, but like I know for our chatbots, it's all just based on the information we put on the internet.
Yeah.
So if enough of us believed, if everybody on the internet decided to put in that the world was flat, the chatbot would believe the world is flat, because that's just what we all put into
aggregate knowledge.
Yeah, I heard like on some like art AI generators, if you don't put in like a topic, it'll make hot air balloons, because I guess that's the most blank stock photo image. So it thinks if you don't put anything in, you're talking about air balloons.
A default.
So stuff like that, where it's like
there's weirdness,
where you might get your first truths, like the concept is there, but the way you're getting told it might be very different every time. And like,
and again, it's just if all of them all believed that from the beginning, for some reason, and that wasn't true. And that's the knowledge they're feeding in over and over
every
again. Exactly. And they all believe it because this is the first truth, and so that
it becomes a loop.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
So
AI actually today is suffering from that. Is this like
exactly
they get locked in and they just keep feeding on the same erroneous data over and over and replicating that data until it becomes.
So stop reading my tweets.
Who knows?
Read something intelligent.
Who knows how it actually works, right? Because like we don't understand how the Votann works. Is it like an AI, like something we would think of,
Yeah.
or is it something complete? Who knows? Because it's probably some dark age technology thing.
Yeah.
So, but my point is that if that is like an explanation that would make sense, like it's
Cool.
just they all believed it and they keep believing it, so it keeps getting deeper and deeper into the AI that's the truth.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's a game of telephone, but it gets cooler every time too.
And it's with itself.
It's itself, yeah.
It's lying to itself.
So it's more like a conversation in the shower where you're thinking of like cool comebacks for people.
Years later.
Yeah.
Oh, crap.
Fuck. So it's pretty much doing that. Cool. I like it.
The divide between myth and recorded history becomes clear as the Long March fleets ventured closer to the galactic core. The reasons why they did not return to the cradles of humanity's civilization remain shrouded in mystery. The fact that numerous kin fleets plunged into the heart of the galaxy within a span of mere centuries suggests that a deliberate decision was made, a choice veiled in obscurity but echoed in the unyielding resolve that defines the kin. The Leagues of Votann embrace their past not as a fixed narrative but as a legacy of resilience, one that continues to shape their present and future as they journey through the endless night of cosmos.
Nice. I'm happy for them. The first ancestors. The ancestor cores, enigmatic and ancient, may hold within them the entirety of kin history from their inception. Yet, if such a vast knowledge endures, it lies buried beneath layers of time and secrecy, obscured from even the most diligent of seekers. Thus, even the ever meticulous kin have had to accept that beyond a certain point, their history dissolves into a miasma of myth and legend, where the truth and allegory intertwine inseparably. The Leagues of Votann derive their name from Votann itself, as entities shrouded in myriad epithets. What does that one mean?
It means like other names for.
Okay, sure.
Like title names.
The primal ancestor, or like
call you a dickhead.
I have a myriad of epithets. Dickhead is what I go by most. The primal ancestor, the Gilded One, and the Stone Mind, and others still. Within the labyrinth of myths, the kin, Votann is sometimes portrayed not as a singular being, but as a multitude, a constellation of gleaming golden figures, or a wheel of ancient stone-carved faces. In other tales, the Votann is the progenitor, crafting the first crucibles and sending the nascent kin to drift into the void, even as the tides of fire and flesh threaten to consume them. Some narratives elevate Votann as the eldest and wisest among the first ancestors, shadowy entities that defy precise form, appearing both humanoid and otherwise in the sparse descriptions that survive.
So yeah, what are they? Who knows? They could have been just the elders that put together their first ships, and then they just maybe like
launched them into space.
Maybe they like when they started going off on their journeys, they just said, "Hey, we have this technology that we invented that allows us to put our minds into the machines." And so they just started doing that,
and then it created its own thing,
and then it just evolves because like, and then
that's almost like almost like a knight suit then, where it's like the knights get into a suit and their memories get put into the suit, and it starts creating its own personality from nothing. That's kind of a cool way of how this would form. Yeah,
it's one way, but like again, you don't know because it could be some dark age technology machine.
The first truth is we know it happened. Beyond that,
how it happened.
First truth is the Votann exists.
I wonder too with that practical element if it was like just a robot that creates clones, like I said, and they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna go explore dangerous like faraway places, just create a bunch of clones and send them there. And then it slowly evolved into like a culture and a people and a history. But it was just really, again, that practical element of like,
it was a mining corporation,
right? Exactly.
They're like clone our workers and send them to places to mine.
Deep Rock Galactic, is that you?
Yeah, there you go.
Jeez. Pragmatic to their core, the kin understand that their myths are rife with contradictions, allegory, and ambiguity. Unfit to be held as a definitive truth. Just move on. The realization brings them a little distress, grounded in their stoic traditions and relentless realism. The kin are unfazed by the inescapable feeling, no compulsion to encase themselves in the armor of faith as humans often do. Instead, the kin embrace reality as it presents itself. If certain aspects of their ancient past elude understanding, the kin simply set them aside, unless, of course, they become pertinent to the present. Some among the Grimnir persist in interfacing with the ancestor cores, attempting to pose the right queries that might unlock fragments of this obscure history. Yet the pursuit stems more from the quest of knowledge than a yearning for completeness, than a profound existential yearning. That's
So, yeah,
very cool.
Like we said before, because we're kind of touching on this again because it's relevant in both places. But basically, these guys they don't know where they came from, and they're just trying to unlock it out.
Yeah, but again, it's not for that. Like, humans always have this drive to like have like meaning, and these guys are like more practically like, no, I don't care about meaning. We just want to know what happened. It's
Yeah.
like,
or not, no, but it's not even just from curiosity. It's like, oh, wait, we're in this place. Would this help us know what we need to do next?
yeah, like, have we been here before? Is there any
Mm.
resources here that we've encountered in the
Exactly, that
past,
kind
or
of stuff.
threats from the past?
And so maybe they don't even bother like putting enough resources in here to like actually figure it out because they're just like not curious enough.
I did look it up quickly on the side there, and Grimnir are those psychers, and they are psychers. They do tap into the warp.
They do tap into the warp.
It's part of their clone scheme thing, and we don't have to get into it now. We can probably save it for an
I
episode.
think we go into it actually.
Okay.
We go into history.
So I'll wait until we get there. But yeah, there is a way that they tap into the warp.
And pretty quick we do actually. Okay. We do have one question. Maybe rephrase this. What do you think that they of the Emperor, if they know about him because of the Space Marines? So that was not my reading that time.
No, it's all right.
So just rephrase that.
I think they probably don't care about the Emperor because he's not part of their plan.
Yeah.
And they weren't part of the crusade. They don't have the culture of that.
Yeah. And
it
even
skipped them.
And even the Emperor, like he's like a purist, or like he doesn't like mutants and abhumans and stuff.
Well,
like he will
Is
use
it the
them.
Emperor Malkador as me?
Well,
Whoever it is.
Whoever's running the Imperium.
yeah.
It could be that they also look at it the way we look at it, again, from that like secular, practical sense of like, okay, he's just some big psyker that's obviously leading humanity, and like literally how we see him
Yeah.
as like a corpse on a throne that's very strong psyker, but that's it to them. They don't care beyond
Sure.
that leads humanity, but he's not our business, not our problem.
Well, like, I think you would think of it as like if you went to it, let's put ourselves in the Votann.
Already
Take
am
the
a
Votann
Votann.
position. Okay? if you were to go to some tribe in some part of the world that hasn't met anybody else, and they have this chief, they all think of that chief as like, well, this is the chief, this is the most important guy in our culture. He tells us what to do, and he defines where we go and how we're going to do things.
Yeah.
But to you is like, well, I don't care. That has nothing to do with me. I didn't grow up in that tradition.
Yeah.
He has no power over me.
He lives on the other side of the world, literally has no nukes.
It doesn't
Don't
matter
care.
to me.
Yeah.
So like there's a disconnect, a cultural disconnect that they don't have, a relevance that they don't care about. And since the humans are kind of not necessarily avowed enemies, they're just kind of like, well, whatever, this doesn't affect us. His vision doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think that's how they would view him. They're just not, it's not relevant to us.
Yeah,
Who
that's what
cares?
I was saying. It's like they see him in a practical sense. He leads the humans. He leads this faction called the Imperium, but beyond that, like, has no purpose to us. So.
Yeah. Where am I at? I wonder. Okay. Instead, the kin embrace reality as it presents itself. Oh yeah, you're right. Amidst the shadows of myth and legend, however, some truth remain. Did I read that one?
Skip
Maybe.
that.
Okay.
You know what? Skip the next one and the next one.
Okay. You don't want me to talk anymore. Huh. It is also a first truth that the kin were cloned people from the very beginning, with the Iron Kin, robotic entities of equal stature by their side since the earliest days. Furthermore, it is an undeniable truth that the ancestors of the kin embark on their journey as miners, prospectors, and voyagers tasked with harvesting the riches of the cosmos. As the Long March fleets venture closer to the galactic core, myth began to emerge with recorded history. Why the kin did not return to the heartlands of humanity's civilization at that juncture remains unclear. The deliberate plunge of numerous kin fleets into the galactic core of the span of mere centuries suggests a conscious choice was made, one that would forever alter their trajectory through the vast, indifferent void.
So this is one point I from the reading I've done, which is not super extensive on the kin, they're described as living in harmony with these robots. Do we know, like, were the robots always there? Did they?
That's what
always
they're
have them?
saying, is that they were.
Well, from the beginning. So
well, that's
like,
what they understand. Whether that's true or not is up for debate, but that's what they
I don't know.
understand.
So this is slightly frustrating about the way they're writing this, is that you like it's all true and nothing's true.
Okay, but
whatever.
also think about it like this. Troy, right? Like the myth of Troy.
Sure.
These characters, these heroes, like, could they have existed? Maybe, we don't know.
Right.
Could they be real people?
I
Obviously, over
understand that.
time, becoming legendary figures. Like, how much of this is legendary? How much of it is true? We don't even know that about our own history, let alone.
Right.
Sure.
And there is an element of like the further you go back in history, the less relevant details become.
Right.
So it starts to get abstracted. And when you start abstracting the stories, they become more mythical, because that's just
An
the nature of an
idealized,
abstract.
yeah.
It doesn't need details, because who cares if
It's not the point.
a
of the
guy
story.
named Achilles stubbed his toe 5,000 years ago?
he
Who
died.
cares? No, it's his heel.
Okay, I'm sorry. His toe was invincible.
It's his toe.
Achilles' toe will be the opposite of someone's Achilles' heel.
Achilles
Make it
toe.
so.
You can't stub it on anything.
He breaks whatever he
Yeah.
picks.
Bed frames.
You
whatever.
get stubbed. All right. Clone schemes. So this is what I was talking about with the psyker thing. It is during the period sorry. It is during this period that the last reference to the first ancestors can be found, often blurring with or transitioning into mentions of the ancestor cores. These are themselves also referred to collectively as, quote, the Votann, with the kin employing the two terms interchangeably. The first ancestors are cited here as agents of change and held responsible for the majority of the stable mutations and phenotypical expressions, collectively known as, quote, clone schemes, that run through the kin gene pool. This pool appears to have been broad, deep, and varied from the first, putting the lie to simplistic notions of cloned race all being literally identical copies. So this is their way kind of around exactly that. Like, clones, typically, you're just copying all your genetic data and replicating it one for one. But with clone schemes, they actually can like pick traits, and like they have like a library of potential things that they can pick from to create what they need. Right.
Nice.
So instead of just like they're all the same guy, it's like, well, this version of James has red hair and he's good at doing this.
We don't need multiple versions of James. That's a James complaint right there. Just that idea.
This version of James is actually good at things.
Oh,
Okay, we can do multiple
Right.
versions.
And you have this library of
You don't need
genetic
multiple, you
data.
just get rid of the second.
Get rid of the first. Give me a
Annihilate.
second.
It's a clone genocide.
No.
But that's exactly it. So like the clone schemes are almost like genetic packages of like, okay, you need these traits to do this kind of task, and they use it.
Cool.
The Votann are also thought to have hardened the kin both physically and spiritually. Some accounts claim this was in response to perceived threat, others that it was done to ready the kin for inhabiting their harsh new home region of the galactic core. In practical terms, the introduction of the clone schemes gave the baseline kin denser musculature, tougher bone structures, higher red and white cell counts for more efficient physiologies that are, oh man, I'm being near you is like radioactive.
Yeah. Sorry about that. 10 IQ points lower.
That are resistant to hard radiation, exceptional core physical strength, and formidable physical resilience compared to baseline humans. So, like, just better than us. They're built different.
Yeah, not very good at basketball though.
They're tiny. They're great at football. More esoteric, but no less evident, are the changes worked on the kin's spirit and psyche, which cause their souls to shine far more dimly amidst the tides of the warp than those of humans.
James nails it.
So that is what is
Mhm.
happening.
Yeah.
Though, is they're kind of like Tau.
Tuning down, yeah. The kin evidence no uncontrolled psychic mutation, and only those with the appropriate psychoactive clone schemes can activate the so-called barrier tech that allows psychically active kin to interact with the Empyrean. So they can forge psychers. Again, those clone schemes is like, okay, these genetic traits create a psyker. So we'll use
That's
that
cool.
to create our psychers that can actually tap into the warp.
And this is tying slowly into more of their tech a little bit. Like they are creating like psychic tech. They are very good with tech and kind of melding the two.
Tinker.
Like that Grimnar guy. Yeah, it's tech he's shooting out there.
But it's also warp.
But it's also warp, yeah.
But to them, like, again, they have that practical appreciation of the warp.
Right.
The warp isn't magic. It's like
Well,
something that can
if they're
be...
psychically tuned down still, maybe it does. Like they're interacting with the warp, so maybe they're more present in the warp than the Tau, but not as much as humans. So like they're using their technology to amplify their own presence in the warp.
Yeah,
I
like,
see.
without
Yeah,
having
yeah,
to be
yeah.
without having to be as present naturally as like a human or an Eldar would be.
Yeah, so they use like familiars almost, but not quite familiar. It's more like tokens. What would you call like harnessing tokens, maybe?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, that makes more sense to
like
me.
just amplifying what's
Yeah,
already there.
exactly.
Yeah, so it's like a candle.
Channelers or
And then you put a mirror on the candle. Like it's just a candle in a room. It's not super bright. And then you put a mirror and it like brightens what's already there. It's just reflecting the light. That's
exactly. I like that.
I keep using, what do you call this? Examples of things?
Metaphors.
Metaphors.
Allegories?
Metaphors are
No,
good for
metaphors.
stupid people like me, though. I can understand.
I like metaphors. Tolkien didn't like allegories.
Well, Token can go write me some more books.
No way, they can't.
Well, he's dead, so there.
Beyond these benefits available to all kin, there are many clone schemes that impart additional useful physical abilities upon kin who possess them. From enhanced reaction times and vision that register infrared or other energistic spectra to limited resistance to extremes of temperature, gravity, or strains of ionizing cosmic radiation. The list goes on. The clone schemes undeniably aided the kin in enduring the extreme environments of the galactic core. So again, it's just like tailoring your biology, but not like Tyranids where like they're...
Well, like Tyranids are like there's no care almost to them, you know. Like
they're naturally just evolving in response to their environment, whereas these guys are like actively engineering their changes.
There's an episode of Star Trek where like all of this whole planet is and everybody's engineered for a specific position. And so like there's one guy who runs the colony and he's like a diplomat, and so he's very charming and very friendly, and he's programmed to do that.
To be
so
like
so he can manage all the different groups. And then there's the guy who's the defense minister, and he's like obviously he's aggressive and he's defensive as well about like protecting everything. He's more conservative in like preserving the way we do stuff. And then there's a scientist who's just naturally curious. And so like it makes sense that they're kind of doing it the same way. Why would we want a person who's really good at science on the front lines who also is like really good at fighting? No, you separate those traits into two unique bodies, and then one can do this and one can do that, and it goes perfect for each
exactly
role.
It goes back to the practicality of like, okay, it's not everyone picking their careers. It's like you're almost assigned a career. This is your genetics slotted in.
I've heard people talk about with AI coming around the corner for us, what you're going to have to do is hyper specialize, because AI will take away anything common. So the only way to be useful is to, like these guys do, is to hyper focus on one thing and become the best at that. You are the scientist. No
one else does science here.
Yeah. You know.
Yeah.
That
and it goes to the degree of like, yeah, like your biology, like you can see an infrared. No one else can see an infrared, but you were designed to see an infrared because of whatever space thing that you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's cool. I kind of like that.
Yeah. So there's not really a meritocracy involved because it's not relevant.
No,
you are just what you're made
built
to be.
do. Yeah. It's almost like an ant colony. Like
yeah
everyone has a role and a purpose. Many clone schemes manifest physically, whether it is unusually colored eyes or skin, craggy subdermal layers, chemical body odors of various other giveaways. To humanity, such physical abnormalities would surely be cause for prejudice and mistreatment. To the kin, they are rather badges of valuable ability, either bequeathed by the ineffable ancestor cores or encouraged by the cloners' guilds during gestation. So yeah, like we need more soldiers. Let's create more soldiers. Blah blah. And there's no, you're different, obviously, but they don't care. Like obviously, you're built for your purpose. That's
there's
also
an assumption that everyone is made perfectly.
Yeah. I don't know if you delve into it here, and I was going to talk about it later, but again, Votann doesn't overwrite what already existed. And we talked about during the squat episode how squats and what are the demiurge, right? And the demiurge are very like stone skinned and stuff.
Yeah.
There's a way that they've melded all these together. So like there is a clone scheme of demiurge or of, oh my gosh, they're all mixing in my head now. A Votann that could have more like rock craggy skin. They can still exist alongside more fleshy looking ones, right? Like you can kind of get away with any kind of changes in them because there's a couple other sub factions too that they've all kind of melded together. There's a demiurge, the squats, and then there's a couple of versions that the Eldar talk about that they have their own names for the Votann. So they're all the same thing that they've mashed together into one. I'm talking like outside of 40K. That's what like the authors are doing.
Yeah.
So just a way to explain that away, right? Like why do they all look different? Why, right?
Yeah. It's easy to think like, okay, what eye color are we going to give these guys? But then like, I wonder, how far do they take these traits? Like, okay, the craggy skin, like they're super tough.
Yeah.
Obviously, their skin's not made of rock like the Demi-Earth,
Yeah, it's
but
just
like
like-
pretty darn close.
What is that called? The skin conditioner you get like dry.
The Kraggles.
Craiglies. You failed med school, didn't you?
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, it's just
Yeah.
really like psoriasis. Just their
Um,
whole body's covered in psoriasis.
Yeah,
But
I
it's very
wonder like
practical.
what other kind of crazy variants you could get away with without it being
Too far or like
much.
no longer right. Like they're not
Well-
going to the degree of giving you like hoof feet or
And you're not
horns.
spitting acid like Space Marines
Yeah.
are, and like
I think so there's a tension here between two extremes. So the human perspective, like the imperial perspective, is that deviation produces things that might be detrimental to our species. So we want to preserve the natural human form so that we don't get into, so that it's preservation of your own genes so that they survive.
Yeah.
And you know, too much extreme stuff might get hyper specialized and then be something that
Or become
goes extinct.
an inhibition and
Yeah,
actually
something
screw
like
you
that.
over. Yeah.
And then these guys are going the other way, where their extreme could be we go into too many extremes and then things become impractical. And remember, they have the problem of compounding. Every time you add something, it now is added to the core. So if you get something weird,
You start making the core weird.
you start making
that
the core weird.
compounding factor is very cool to
I
always think about.
think that's my favorite part of the
Yeah.
Votann is the fact that you're changing the AI as it goes.
So yeah, maybe that's why you don't want to like go too far from it, because if you do go too far and give somebody wings and then they die and you put them into the core, now that really starts to mess with
things.
kind of the concept of a whole, the first truths. Did we have wings to begin with, or did we not?
Yeah.
Who
Did we-
remembers?
There have always been wings.
You son of a bitch.
Obscure legend gives way entirely to historical record. During the following centuries, a scattered kin fleet settled new worlds, establishing trade routes, and became the first of the leagues of Votann. So
Cool. All right, let's talk about the kindred holds and the
Kindred.
leagues. Among the kin, nearly all, save for a few outcasts, are members of a kindred. These groups exist on a spectrum, falling somewhere between extended families or clans and a close-knit, genetically linked interstellar nation-state. The size of a kindred may vary dramatically, ranging from a few dozen kin members to reach thousands or even millions. Every kin within a kindred emerges from its crucible, the artificial wombs that form the heart of every one of their societies, creating a genetic bond that is deeper and more profound than any mere allegiance to a flag or banner. Typically, the kin live, train, and labor within the hold, the fortress home of their kindred, venturing out into the void for trade, scouting, mineral prospecting, or war only when necessary. The term hold is emblematic of the kin's tendency to imbue seemingly simple words with layers of nuanced meaning, reflecting their inclination to use words sparingly and precisely. While hold is a common term throughout the leagues of Votann, it encompasses a vast array of structures and environments. Some holds are sprawling amalgamations of fortresses, cities, industrial complexes, and strip mines, vast enough to cover or bury beneath entire hive worlds. Others might be heavily armed void stations clustered with domes scattered throughout asteroid belts. Nomadic harvesting fleets, mobile matter energy siphoning plants, and skimming the fringes of black holes to harvest from their accretion disks, or even more fantastical technological marvels. So these could be anything.
yeah, holds are loosey-goosey terms.
Yeah. Somebody says I have to say I kind of miss the old squats because they sounded very fun. I think that maybe that's a whole episode on itself, but I think that's like a product of the time. It was a fun time when squats were around. They're riding motorbikes, and it's very kind of goofy back then.
Yeah, that comes from like an era of 40K that was like, we were talking about this earlier.
Yeah.
Like funny, humorous, didn't take itself seriously. It was a more, what's the word?
Goofy, grim.
No,
Grim Dork?
no,
Grim Dork.
no. Grimdark comes after
Oh yes, okay.
the eras of.
There's
40K.
tears.
Yeah,
Okay, yes.
there's like, it's like a pastiche, but not what's another word for that?
I don't
Boobies.
know.
Yeah,
Well,
whatever.
Irregardless,
A kindred can wield formidable power. Its hold might feature bustling cityscapes, industrial and military might, and a fleet of enormous void ships. Yet the influence of a kindred is further magnified when it becomes part of an alliance, confederation, or a league. Nearly every kindred is aligned with one league or another, proudly displaying its colors and emblems while sharing resources, trade, military might, and guild tariffs with its fellow members. Many of these leagues of Votann have endured for millennia. Ancient and powerful factions like the Greater Thurian League, the Ymir Conglomerate, the Yunari Sutar Regulates.
Can you please take some time before the show to learn how to say these properly?
I'm saying these very well in comparison to most of the words I've said. The Typhon Styx Protectorate stand as titanic power blocks among the kin. Some, such as the ill-fated Caplian League, have seen decline over the ages, while others, like the Kronos Hegemony or the Serentok Mercantile League, are more recent establishments growing in strength and influence. I do kind of like the idea of, I don't know, it's not fitting with the dwarf vibe, but just like the idea that these are just like merchant guilds that are super powerful is kind of fun too. Like they're just like out to get rich, like and collect resources. That's all they're about. I don't know. That's kind of fun too. Like they don't care about conquering territory or.
I always just picture Erebor, man, in Lord of the Rings, and just the vast hoard of gold, and just like, why? Fucking cool, but why? And you know, only to be a dwarf is to know why.
Yeah.
We know why.
At the core of every kin league resides at least one Votann or ancestor core. The kin believes these are venerable artificial intelligent machines were forged in an era shrouded in myth. They departed the kin homeworld alongside the earliest mining fleets, sent into the void to provide the wisdom and guidance the kin would need to survive and thrive. The nodes through which the Votann's wisdom flows have since become the Fanes, the sacred centers that lie within each kindred hold.
I'm learning all these new words. Fanes, kins. Wow. Terminology.
Very Germanic, very Nordic.
Yeah, Nordic and like Anglo-Saxony. Probably a little bit of Scottish as well.
Dare I see a dash of make-believe?
Nah, it's all real.
Flash of magic.
The Votann hold an incalculable value and significance for the kin. The relentless passage of Terran millennia has wrought strange changes upon these machine intelligences, slowing their processes and rendering them ponderous and aged. Yet they remain all-knowing repositories of ancient lore and the most treasured links to the kin's forebears. Those who possess the rare ability to commune with the Votann are known as the Grimnir, or sometimes as living ancestors, and they are revered universally among their people.
Cool. The motivation, I guess, according to the comment section, is they're just hunting the Void Dragon to get their gold back.
Man, I would love them to do more riffs on like Tolkien and have like literally do that.
Trying to get their
from the Void Dragon, sleeping on their treasure.
They have some like psyker recruits them to, and a
band of 13, yeah, and one ratling, yeah, to be the burglar. They could do it.
That's probably still better than half the shit they write nowadays.
It would be like just a little side piece, fam. I'm all for it.
Just a little short story.
Yeah, a little novel-long short story.
And they cause the Void Dragon to wake up and blow up a whole planet.
Yeah.
Lake Planet.
I want to watch it. Living and working in the core. So let's go deeper into their system here. Terran millennia have elapsed since the first kin holds took root within the galactic core. Throughout these vast spans of time, the kin have remained largely with its enigmatic region of the galaxy, a region that has longly deterred other starfaring races. Although entities such as the Imperium's Adeptus Mechanicus, the Eldarian worshippers of chaos, have ventured into the core, their incursions have been few and fraught with peril. Many sought the incredible wealth generated by the region's stellar nurseries and cosmic phenomenon, hoping to plunder its riches or exploiting its natural defenses. Some came with the intention of hiding amidst the core's turbulent gravitic anomalies, while others were drawn to the dense asteroid clusters cast out from their accretion. Is that a real thing?
Yes.
Okay, accretion disk is like to like secrete almost, or what is it?
Opposite. It's when like gravity is like pulling stuff.
Oh, okay.
Together.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I took an astrology course in university.
Oh, I was gonna say just like grade 9.
I actually did grade 9. Grade 9 space.
Wow, you're
Grade
so
9
smart. How did you do it? Yet the core is more than a hiding place or a treasure trove. You ever wonder how I wrote these notes without knowing half the words? Yet the core is more than just the core is more than a treasure trove or a hiding place. It is a crucible of creation, a vast expanse of wild space where the fundamental forces of the universe clash in perpetual conflict. Scattered across the hostile domain are the shattered remains of those who underestimate its dangers, ruins and void hulks that serve as tombstones for the ambitious, of those who sought fortune or refuge and only found doom. So, like, it's such an interesting, weird spot, you know? They keep talking about, like, the dangers of this area, the wealth this area generates, and, like, how does that all come about? Is that kind of stuff in our real world? Like,
I think it's based on the premise that in the galaxy, as you get further from the center of the Milky Way, it gets sparser and sparser with matter. So like where we are, we're quite far out, and we're in between one of the arms of the galaxy. So we're in a very sparse part of space. And so if you go into the arms, it's denser. There's lots of stars in there and lots of planets. And then if you go to the core, it's just like lots and lots of stars and planets.
So
it's the densest
like a
part.
Natural function of galaxies almost as it spins and twirls out. And loses some things.
The gravity is pulling everything in towards the core.
And they suspect, like, I think it's more of a modern development that there's black holes at the center of all galaxies, like massive, supermassive black holes that are sucking everything in.
Kind of holds it.
I don't know. I'm not a space guy.
I
took astrology and
astrology. He was going to go to astronomy,
but I got lost and I ended up in the astrology.
Walked into the room, a lot of chicks in here. Closes his door and sits down. My man. We got some comments maybe before I carry on. Anything interesting? So they're kind of like blood angels, steal anything shiny from everyone else.
It doesn't look
they
like
made the shiny things first of all.
Yeah, exactly. They're stealing it from the environment.
Yeah, that void dragon gold is their gold in the first place.
Everyone's stealing from them.
Paint them like clowns. They are ringling, bro. Okay, sure. Let's carry on. Where are we at? The kin, however, have not shared this grim fate. Armed with
physiologies.
No. Sorry, I think I missed something. Nope, I didn't. The kin, however, not have shared this grim fate, armed with physiologies and technologies seemingly designed for survival in hazardous expanse. They have flourished where others have faltered. At the forefront of this success are the Chthonian mining guilds, the most resilient and daring of all the kin organizations. These guilds, composed of heavily augmented and incredibly brave individuals, have ventured further and deeper than any other. Do we want to
there, but
but they're dwarves, so how deep can they really go? There's a joke there. By the bloody light of the red giants, their space-borne particle evacuators have delved into the very hearts of newborn stars. That's fucking cool. Extracting their energy and converting it into the fundamental elements required for the kin's burgeoning interstellar industry. A couple things there. That's really cool how they fucking burgeoning.
I just wondered if you knew.
Oh man, half the time. That's cool. They can harvest stars in that kind of way, and like, so what? It's made of carbon or whatever, stars, and then they use that to fucking hydrogen, and they do that with everything else, and
yeah, they just break things down to the like components.
Well, my only question would be: is if you can start harvesting a star, why would you need to go anywhere else?
You have all the stars in the middle.
Yeah, like
especially too since they're spacefaring, so it's not even like they're worried about fucking up their planet's star. No,
they just go somewhere, and because like how much resources could you get from one star?
I've never done it. I don't know.
We're asking you to do some experiments, please.
Intro level astrology did not get into star harvesting.
My sign is Capricorn.
That's all I know.
The Chthonian mining guilds. I wonder if that has anything to do with the Chthonian Horus.
Planets.
Yeah. Horus's homeworld, but kindred void ships have shattered entire planets, deploying enormous external refinery rigs on kilometer-long umbilical cords to harvest the molten bounty within. Cosmic radiation and particulate belts, ancient even during the war in heaven between the Old Ones and the Votann, were drawn into massive plasma conduits or scooped up by atomic collectors, then transmuted into materials the kin need to thrive. Over time, the leagues were born, each one a testament to the kin's tenacity and ingenuity. Trade routes were forged across void straits, buffeted by steering stellar winds, connected the galactic's core to outer circumnuclear disk with the now is that real with the ominous dead zone encircling its center. More and ever greater holds were erected upon worlds where the night ever falls due to the sheer density of stars crowding the skies above. Life in the core was unforgiving, but its rewards were abundant. The kin, understanding the advantages and thriving in the region, where their competitors could not. Thus, the millennia of terror passed, and the leagues of Votann focused their efforts on settling the immense sprawl of the core, extracting its boundless material riches and solidifying their dominion over this formidable domain.
I'm just picturing like some crazy worlds where it's like there's like 5 stars in this system, and like the gravity is all weird, so you can like jump really high because like the stars are pulling you up maybe or something, and then you I don't know.
I think it's reverse and the stars are crushing.
I often think if we could jump proportionally the same as a cat could, and all of a sudden you're like jumping onto roofs. Yeah, exactly. How fun that'd be. And how like how society would change to then fit that weird
like buildings
jumping.
Would look different.
Exactly.
Walls would have to be so high.
Exactly. Fun. The other kind of cool thing about this is since it's such a dense area of space that they've conquered, I've kind of thought like, man, how do you make them the galactic player? Like the Tau, we bitch about them not being a galactic player because they're far off in the
corner,
the southeast or whatever, and they don't go anywhere else. But these are in the center, and there's so many planets. They could have more planets than the Imperium has technically.
Sure.
Like, yeah, the Imperium has more space, but
and the other thing too is they can get around better. They don't necessarily care. They're kind of like in the same way where we talked about the Dark Eldar not really caring about amassing territory.
Mm-hmm.
They're in the same boat. They don't really care about conquering the galaxy. They're just kind of there to like build their things.
If there's billions of planets or whatever, like it's not really a resource. Like it is, but not
a thing. Like if you mine gold and there's infinite gold, then gold kind of loses its value, right?
Yeah, and they're not coming out. They're being forced out by the rift, but they don't really care about conquering the rest of the galaxy. And that's why I think they're kind of fun. Is like, oh, they're traders sometimes, and they're allies for some people, mercenaries. Yeah, like there's a lot of really cool elements to the way they did these guys that makes them fun. And you could do like, if you're making your own army, it's like, oh, I'm just making mine a mercenary group that goes around and fights for the Imperium, and they pay them lots of money for doing things that they don't want to do.
Yeah. Or any race even. Like I know they ally with the Tau or whatever. So
also depending on like what resources are. So
mine wouldn't ally with the Tau, but
that's disgusting. No, but like also the resources, like we were talking about the wealth and bounty of the core resources, but there might be other elements and other things that you can only find in other places, and that might draw them to it. So they're looking for something specific.
Got to get that Necron monolith.
Well, maybe not like that, but like a resource that's not necessarily super abundant in the core that forces them to go look for it. Maybe on the wings of the galaxy. Maybe it's an element that under certain conditions.
Maybe
I know it's kind of a stretch, but I'm just thinking if you were on a desert island, like, and I gave you a brick of gold, that's useless compared to like fresh water. So fresh water suddenly becomes the thing you're after.
Right? I get the concept. So, I'm not sure. Again, I'm not also an astronomer, but my understanding would be that.
But it's a very fine profession.
I don't know. I don't know what elements would be in the core that wouldn't be out
in the rest of the galaxy. I know that's why I'm saying it's kind of a leap. Like you can get like fantastical with it. Like
I don't know
it's something,
but I don't know. Maybe only dense materials are there because it's so dense. I don't know.
Sure, but sometimes the forging of stars maybe creates an element, or and that star only at like a certain distance from the core can actually be created, right? Like it needs the perfect conditions, galactic conditions to be created. I don't know, man. I'm just making stuff up.
The thing is, this is all made up.
Holy smokes! No.
Yeah, this isn't real.
What? you just like astrology class.
Jack says you'll have to toss me.
I'll toss you.
Toss the bear.
It's been a while. We're about due for a rewatch.
Yeah. So that was kind of their life in the core. Sounds tough. Lots of stuff to do.
Beyond the core.
Beyond the core.
This is not to imply that the kin never ventured beyond the galactic core. Among their number, the boldest were driven by the desire to prospect in the wider galaxy or establish trade with other starfaring species. More profoundly, kin culture harbors a deeply rooted belief that to truly honor the ancestors, one must live a full life, seeking to discover and learn all that one can. You know what resource is out in the galaxy that's not in the center of the galaxy?
Knowledge.
Experience.
Here in my garage.
Okay.
No, but yeah, like experiences, right? Like
That's true.
That's
like,
awfully wholesome of them.
well,
yeah, that's true.
You could think of it
And
as
for
like
40K.
the Votann is like this mind that wants to keep gaining knowledge more and more and more and more, and so it's programming their servants to go out and get them that knowledge.
Now, here's maybe the grim dark of it all. With every piece of knowledge that they gather is ultimately destruction of their own race as they further slow down their own computer.
They're like in a feedback loop.
Yes.
That's kind of cool. All right, I can get behind that. Through these prospect expeditions, the encounters with alien races capable of surviving within the galactic core, the leagues of Votann have crossed paths with all of the galaxy's great powers in various contexts. However, many of their contacts were limited to singular fleets, conflicts, or trade agreements. The kin, ever cautious and reserved around outsiders, saw no need to disclose the full scope of their holdings in the galactic core, nor the existence of the Votann. So that's cool. Again, it kind of like still keeps old lore intact when it's like they're rare. They kind of pop up here and there randomly. You only see like a war band of them, right? Or a prospecting ship, right? They're rare and scattered around the galaxy. So they're not like rewriting. They are rewriting lore practically, but they're incorporating the old lore to keep it consistent.
I do like this is a
that's how you do update.
This is a much more smooth introduction of lore than they've done in the past.
Recently with the sledgehammer.
Yeah, no, and this is new 40K, and it is it fits in quite nicely. They put them in a place that's like not everybody else would have been in the core. And so that's where they are, and that's why no one was interacting with them.
Yeah.
The fact that the cicatrix maledictum and the whole crap of the warp is flooding in that area makes sense as to why now they'd be doing
suddenly emerging.
Sure,
it's
it all fits
not
together.
bad.
Yeah,
it's perfectly written.
Well, perfect might be a stretch.
What?
As a result, many who encountered the kin mistook a single kindred or league for the entirety of what they believed to be a minor alien species. In the Imperium's records, it is nearly impossible to discern how many so-called itinerant nomad races, unclassified Xenos trade fleets, or abhuman enclaves were, in fact, the kin. So again, I get that a cool explanation of like, they're scattered, they're encountered by the Imperium here as like a small colony. It's like, okay, are these the whole race? That's it. That's all of them. They didn't realize that they're part of this larger thing. When consistently identified, the kin are known to the Imperium by the derogatory term squats, their classification fluctuating between abhuman and true Xenos. They have been mistakenly called demiurge by both the Tau and humans, the Heliosi ancients by the Eldari, and variously named the Nostari, the Grom, or the Craig by the Star Trek species. Craig sounds more like a slur. We won't be calling people Craigs.
Craigs.
Everything sounds like a slur.
When you say it like that. In addition to exploration, trade, and prospecting, the kin have fought countless wars. A disproportionate number of these conflicts have been against the Orcs, who are the kin's most despised and frequent adversaries. The Orcs' crude but resilient civilization flourish in the galactic core, as they do everywhere else, and their anarchic, destructive nature is anathema to all the kin value. The antagonism has sparked mutual aggression between the two species on numerous occasions. The kin have little more regard for the mortal worshippers of the dark gods, whom they view with a mixture of revulsion and bewilderment. So that's cool. Again, that fantasy element of orcs dwarves having a long-standing grudge with the orcs is like a very fantasy thing that they've imported, and it does make sense that orcs they exist everywhere in the galaxy. That's how they thrive.
Galactic core orcs could be fun too. Like if you turn a human into a squat, you use the old model.
It's all canon. They still exist.
Yeah, no. If you turn a human into a squat in the galactic core, what do you turn an orc into?
Yeah. I want to see all the factions now.
Woo!
Getting galactic core, like Tyranids that are from the core. Chonky
flatworms.
Yeah, it's cool. I like it. In addition to exploration, trade, and prospecting, the kin have fought countless wars. A disproportionate number of these conflicts have been against the Orcs, who are the kin's most despised frequent adversaries. The Orcs' crude but resilient civilization. Well, I already read that, didn't I? Yes, I did.
I haven't been listening to you. So.
Yeah, clearly. You just tuned me out. The other thing too to note is how they mentioned they see any chaos worshippers with revulsion and bewilderment. Again, it's probably that like they're more secular, so they're like,
bewilderment. Like, what are you doing over
ew,
there?
brother.
Ew, brother.
Bro, what you doing over there?
The kin also bear animosity towards the Necrons, against whom they have fought on several occasions, often when their excavations disturb ancient stasis tombs or when awakened Necron dynasties return from the Great Sleep to reclaim worlds now settled by the kin. Again, that makes sense. If they're digging all the time, eventually you're going to run into Balrogs or Tomb Worlds. Yeah. Giant sleeping demons.
I mean, that is also just perfect dwarf lore.
Yeah, how many Tomb Worlds have they woken?
All of them. The Tyranids are known across the leagues of Votann simply as, quote, the Bane, earning the wary respect reserved for especially cunning and dangerous predators. This respect has not stopped those kindreds from actively hunting Tyranid splinter fleets, targeting isolated hive ships to harvest their biomatter-rich resources. So that's cool, too. They're actually, like, hunting Tyranids.
Yeah.
I kind of, like, picture, it's a white whale story.
Jonah? Nope, no. That's a different one. That's a
Bible
one.
Captain...
Ahab.
No. Ahab, yeah.
What's the book?
Moby Dick.
Moby Dick, thank you. How could I forget that?
How did we forget Dick?
But yeah, you could have like a whole Moby Dick story with like a bitter, angry Votann.
And you
have rip off all literature and
Yes.
convert it into Votann.
And you make a white Tyranid.
Yeah, like bio shit.
Oh,
It's just dragging him.
bio. Yes.
I need to start a Votann army and just rip off all the books.
Okay.
I like that.
Classic literature. Yeah.
Captain Ahab. You could be Grimnar Ahab.
Grimnar Ahab. Yeah.
And you could even mix like the fantasy. What are the fantasy floating dwarf types?
Fantasy floating dwarf.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know what you call cat. Starts with a K. Ironclad. Whatever.
Yeah, whatever they are, but
yeah,
they give strong vibes. Strong Englishman vibes.
Cardonian. Kardashian.
You mean the Mordians?
No. They're like magic dwarfs. They're from Warhammer.
And they fly in like this metal
balloon things. Yeah.
The orc. It's like Orc-Herod. I don't know.
Cardon overlords.
Yeah.
Cardon overlords.
Well, I don't know.
We got there.
Yeah. This is not a Sigmar podcast.
No.
Humanity has been both enemy and ally to the Leagues. Inquisitors and intolerant Space Marines are quick to label the kin as Xenos, calling for their termination. Also calling them squats, which is not acceptable. The Adeptus Mechanicus are viewed by the kin as superstitious tech shamans whose blend of acquisitiveness and ignorance about the true nature of science and technology renders them dangerous, a threat to be swiftly neutralized if avoidance is not possible. So that's cool. Like it shows like they're automatically enemies with anything Martian, but depends on the Space Marine, depends on the other human factions, whether or not they'll be allies or enemies.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. It gives you the flexibility in the lore, which a lot of 40k doesn't allow to that degree. Typically, like if you're Space Marines, you got to have a really good reason why you're working alongside Tau or
fighting other Space Marines.
But these are again a kind of a unique case in that they are kind of human.
Yeah, they can ride the line, right?
Yeah.
With the Eldari, the Tau, and several other starfaring alien species, the kin have maintained semi-cordial relations and sporadic trade. However, exceptions abound. The kin have little patience for the Drakari's gruesome excesses or the perceived arrogance of the Suriani. More recently, they have clashed with the expanding Tau Empire on the fringes of the Chalanth expanse. Sorry, I got the hiccups.
Yeah, makes sense. They make trade or war where it makes sense for them.
Yeah.
And like you could be at war with one league and not another too. So
surprisingly, something that doesn't seem to be transposed from fantasy is their grudging relationship with Eldar, which is typically like elves and dwarves not getting along. It's a very trademark thing, but it doesn't look like they have necessarily that.
Sure.
Wonder if there'd be a way to.
Well, I mean, they have
what other classic literature can I rip off?
All right, let's talk about their physiology. The kin are short. Done. What's the next one? Done. No, okay. The kin are short, stocky, and physically powerful. They're a form of abhuman, originally descended from humans of the pre-imperial Terra. Standing approximately 4 feet tall, they possess a dense musculature and skeletal structure, granting them strength that rivals even that of a Space Marine. Despite being a race of clones, which each kindred sharing the same genetic code, the kin are far from uniform in appearance or abilities. Each kin is gestated in mechanical wombs, known as crucibles, under the watchful supervision of the Votann.
It's so crazy, like, just we're entering this age of AI ourselves and thinking like AI and medical conditions and how it would monitor everyone and notice the slight variations and know this crucible over here is slight, needs just a little bit more mineral of this to help this baby.
Yeah,
It just
it'll
monitors,
activate these genes.
yeah, and then knows that 100 years down the line that just prevented cancer for that little baby. Stuff like that, just with all the mass data collection. Very
Yep.
cool.
This cloning process does not lead to identical individuals, nor does it cause the defects that can arise from lack of genetic diversity. Although I don't know why that would be a problem if you're just cloning, because there's no
Yeah, because the whole
sexual
thing.
reproduction.
yeah.
Although you would have to worry about viruses,
Yeah, anything that could kill you, like kill.
so you would have to introduce genetic variation so that the viruses don't hyperadapt to your physiology.
Yeah.
So that does make sense that they would have to like mutate them
account
a
for
little
that.
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first ancestors who shaped the kin society millennia ago to endure the harsh conditions of the galactic core engineered a series of stable mutations and phenotypic variations into the kin genome. These are known as the clone skins, as we discussed earlier. In practical terms, these genetic modifications provide the kin with enhancements over the human baseline. They have denser muscles and bones, granting them superior physical strength and resilience. Their bodies can produce higher levels of red and white blood cells, resulting in more efficient respiratory systems and a heightening immune response capable of combating the ionizing radiation common in the galactic core.
Resistant to getting cancer.
Nice.
I mean, like, they just seem like if you were unencumbered by the Imperium's, like, backwardness, where would humanity be? This is kind of the answer.
Just taller. Because we do know that the Imperium likes tall things.
Tall
That-
things. Yes.
well,
Look at the
unencumbered-
Primarchs.
Yeah, my tallest?
Unencumbered by the Imperium's morals, okay? You would be like the Votann. You'd have, like, all these super advanced technologies. Like, would all humans clone? Probably not. But there's just other things like genetic manipulation and
Yeah,
design.
They're
and
unhindered
yeah,
by superstition.
exactly. So many clone skins are designed to offer specific advantages to those who possess them. These include enhanced reaction times, the ability to see beyond the visible spectrum into infrared, other electromagnetic wavelengths, and increased resistance to extreme temperatures, gravity, or radiation. Such enhancements are crucial for navigating and surviving the turbulent environments of the galactic core, or wherever they might end up elsewhere. These genetic alterations also result in varied phenotypic traits among the kin, disproving the notion that clones are identical. These variations may include skin or eye colors that are unusual, as we discussed, or just different skin types, different strength, I guess, too. Because, like, if you have a science dude, why would you program him to
All
be
the
super
biles,
tough?
he's always just crushing them. No, I'm too damn strong.
Yeah, you need
Curse
to-
my creator.
Exactly. The first ancestors also modified the kin's mental acuity and psyche in ways that make them less susceptible to the powers of the immaterium and its unnatural entities. This mental and physical fortification makes the kin far less prone to mutations caused by the exposure to chaos. Instances of demonic possession or corruption by chaos among the kin are exceedingly rare.
So possible.
Yeah, so there's where the
So
Celtic
Balrog
mysteries.
can still
Yeah.
exist.
Excellent. Excellent.
Moreover, the kin show a high resistance to powers that draw upon the energies of the warp. The consequence, or perhaps the advantage of the psychic resilience, is the absence of true psychers among the kin. This mutation simply does not exist within their population. Additionally, these psychic modifications have contributed to the conservative, stoic, and deeply stubborn nature that characterizes the kin. Yeah, so I mean, like, they're not real psychers, whatever that means. So in the
Like
place-
naturally born.
Yeah.
Because with humans, like, it's a roll of the dice. It's a certain genetic combination that.
which is
unlocks
increasing
it.
with them.
Right, exactly.
And even like with them, it's like you can put two psychers together. You don't know if you're getting a psyker.
Right. It's
Or
not
what if you had a
consistent.
boy
but
with
with-
a null baby?
Uh,
A psycher mom with a null baby. Oh, that could cause all kind of.
In place of the psychic mutation, the first ancestors endowed the kin with
Weird dude.
specialized
I'm just picturing this now. Just this psychic mom breastfeeding a null baby. And how miserable it is. And that's because of you, Griffin.
You did this to me.
You did this to me.
All right. So the Grimnar, or living ancestors, serve as the kin's primary link to the wisdom of the Votann and are the closest equivalent to the priests within their highly secular society. Bearers of the psychoactive clone skin are the only ones capable of activating the advanced barrier technologies possessed by the Leagues, allowing the for limited interactions with the warp. So they are not fully interacting with the warp. Just like I said, they have this. They're not.
It's level of degrees. I don't think it's that they're not interacting with the warp. It's that how much are they?
Sure,
It's
but
like a
Tau.
powerful psyker or just like a mid psyker.
Like a Tau, they can't really interact with.
No, because Tau like are so little. They literally don't even have psychers. Whereas these guys do have psychers with the clone scheme.
They
can use limited psychic powers. Read the text.
But it says that technologically they're using them, not through their own psychic ability.
Yeah, it's like they're
we're having the same conversation.
Okay, well,
whatever.
Yeah, using totems or something to enhance. Yeah,
perfect. So we did it then.
We did it.
Yes. All right. Well, honestly, that's kind of where where I left it with the notes. We kind of know where they came from. We kind of know a couple of their big things and some of their core concepts. There's still a lot here. Like when I was reading about them, we can still talk about their society, their weapons. There's still a lot here, but I think this was a good kind of starting point. I'd love to hear maybe from like a Votann lover. Like we're just Votann curious. What you guys thought of this episode, how we did portraying them? What are things that you like about the Votann? What are things you hope that they carry on and stuff like that, or continue to kind of flesh out? Are you hyped for that novel? Yeah, it was very interesting learning about this for the first time. I had a great time on this episode. Some of the concepts and themes that we learned about from them are the survival and adaptation that the Kins do. Just seems like that's their thing. They go into the galactic core and then they have to adapt, and then they did. Ancient legacy and tradition, that really kind of spoke to me, that family legacy type thing. And even though they're all clones, so they're all their own dad and they're all their own
their own
son,
grandfathers.
Yeah, however that works. I don't know, but I like it. I like it. Isolation and self-sufficiency, pretty dwarven mantra in general. You know, they just want to be left alone and dig their tunnels, pretty much. Genetic engineering and cloning. Very interesting how they get away with this and do some of it. It's different than some of the cloning I've seen in other areas, because it's almost like this dual cloning that they do. They clone them bodily, but then they also clone them when they die mentally.
Yeah. Hey.
So you get this dual cloning process essentially.
They clone their mind into the machine and they clone their bodies.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I mean, cloning is a bit of a weird word since they're genetically engineering each one of them. So it's not really even a clone.
Like if the core
base level of clone.
Yeah, like I said, there's different kinds of James, right? Like I have James and then I tweak his hair color and then I tweak his mental capacity to like I up it a lot more than our baseline James.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of room for it.
Move that dial up a little bit.
And the other thing is conflict war. The Kin's interactions with other species are frequent, especially with the orcs, Necron, and Tyranids. It's cool how they kind of went after Tyranid hunting. They raid tomb worlds and they fucking hate orcs.
Classic.
Yeah, it's some different relations than what you might normally think. Well, you would expect them, but like it's just different. You don't quite see Tyranid hunters necessarily. You know, you got some tyrannic war veterans, but
yeah, they're not going out of their way to. It's more like they get called in to fight the Tyranids when the Tyranids arrive.
Yeah.
And the idea that they have the technology to strip Tyranids of their resources and
the Uno reverse card.
Yeah, exactly. Very cool how they do that.
That might be my favorite. One of my favorite aspects of them is that idea of just being like
Moby Dick. I want to see an army next week, James.
Just use a whole bunch of like Votann with like a trailer full of carapace in the back that they're just like
collecting.
Yeah, very cool.
My other favorite element that I really love is the idea of what is this Votann thing? Who is this hacker known as Votann?
Well, let me raise you this. What if, humans raided a tomb world and they hacked the world engine and that's just starting AI?
It could be anything, but I love the idea that they're shaping it all the time with every generation they put in, and that affects like what does that affect it a lot? Is it so full of people that it barely affects it anymore, and it's just compounded and can't change its thoughts because there's so many people who thought the same thing? I don't know. There's so many interesting angles from that.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting.
Yeah, when I first heard about them and I read very loosely, I wasn't too much of a fan of kind of how it all plays out. I heard, oh, so they got AI. Well, that's a pretty common theme in 40K. Wasn't really interested, but I think they did a pretty good job with it.
Yeah, and I like one of the things is there's a lot of elements that seem like, oh, we took this little piece from this bit of lore and put it in, but it all kind of works in a different enough way that it doesn't feel like they interact with the warp kind of the same way the Tau do.
Sure.
But it's different enough that it doesn't feel like a ripoff. It feels, oh, this is a unique interaction with the warp. And oh, they interact with ships or technology in this way, but it's kind of their own version of it, which I think
seems like they almost have Necron level of technology. Like they can harvest, maybe not quite that far, but they're harvesting suns and doing that kind of high level gathering.
I think they have like a high capability, like a high level of capability.
It seems like technologically, would there be anything like it's Necrons at the top? Would it then be Votann?
I would have to read more about them, but like, yeah, maybe, man. Like,
it doesn't seem like anybody else has technology better than them.
Maybe. What are those chimps that follow Inquisitors?
Jacaro.
Yeah. Maybe Jacaro, but definitely Votann will be up to the top.
Yeah, interesting. I'm excited to learn more. This was just dipping our toe into them.
And it's exciting too because we don't get new stuff like this.
Not fully, no.
Yeah. So
and it was done pretty well.
What I like the most about it is how they salvaged the old lore. They didn't overwrite Demiurge. They didn't squat the squats. They literally took everything that existed and found a way to merge it all.
Yeah.
So that it can all exist and it all works. And they didn't have to erase the past. You taking lessons, GW? This is how you know.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah. They didn't overwrite anything. They just like, it can all be true. It all exists still, right? Your Demiurge still can exist.
It could be that they saw how people were not super thrilled with how the Primaris showed up and they're like, we'll do it better. And it looks like they did.
And then they're like, fuck you, here's some female custodes.
Then they went right back on it.
Yeah. Well, you can only have so much.
Right.
You can only have so much. What
do we hate about them?
I think the reliance on like a religious worship of an AI feels like it's a little bit overplayed as a concept. Just like, of course, they have an AI that they worship. I don't know. That feels a little bit overdone. I do love the way that they did it. If you're gonna do it, they did it the right way. But it does
an
like
overplayed
concept.
Yeah, I do kind of like, again, the ancestor aspect instead. So that is true that they worship an AI, but it's also seen as ancestor worship, which isn't really something they had in 40K before. But they do now, but it's also not because they are supposed to be more secular.
Well, and I think sort of like you mentioned, it's sort of like Eldar too, though.
Yeah, the spirit circuit thing. I do wish that they either stuck to their guns one way or the other and made them either like super secular or not. Because they always bring up that tension again. Where it's like, well, they do worship them or as close to worship as you can get for a secular race, but they're really not, right? It's like, okay, well then what are they, right? Pick a lane.
Other thing I dislike, the harmony with AIs.
So unless that builds to something that either we haven't discovered yet that maybe other Votann fans know about, or that GW hasn't released yet, whereas like a tension of like, are the AI using the Votann, or the like another sub story?
If there's not something more to that than just like AIs, and it just is too like convenient when they've established everywhere else this ends badly. For all of a sudden these guys are just doing it well. I don't love that.
Wow. Yeah. It's kind of gross that a machine makes these abhumans to just go mine the galaxy.
Well, that's what I suspect. Why there's like maybe the AI are the ones in control. They're the ones using the Votann and just letting the Votann think that they're in charge.
Yeah, and they're thinking that the Votann have been doing this all along. You guys love mining.
Like I said, I made exactly right.
but then that's just the exact same thing that conspiracy theory with the Tau.
But that's also just a conspiracy theory. So
this is also a conspiracy
maybe this
theory.
Is true though for the Votann and not true for the Tau. And the Tau got their whole like slave ethereal thing going on. That's the actual truth.
Sure.
I don't know. One thing too that I kind of the models. I'm not super keen on the models.
I actually really like them.
Really?
I think they're like blocky and very unique aesthetically. They don't look like anything else in 40K.
That's true.
And they have I like the way they look. their power armor, but still looks kind of dwarfy and has their own aesthetics with
Their
them.
vehicles are super unique, man.
Man, so
Not
this is
your
where
type.
I diverge. Like they use bolt guns even as their base weapon. So I think for a race that's that technologically advanced, they should have a different weapon set.
They do have lots of different weapons, though.
Sure, but
Yeah,
the bolt gun thing seems like it's like seeing like a super advanced race and then they use like AK-47s. It's like that doesn't fit.
You should be using ion rifles.
Right, exactly. It doesn't fit for me. And then the other thing is their tech doesn't seem that different, and it almost seems too dwarven. They have like these dwarven like sigils and stuff on their armor. They have like a horse head icon.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't. That stuff seems like they lifted it from the dwarf range, and it doesn't make sense for their lore. Like, why would they even know what a horse is? Like literally, right? Like
Sure, but
stuff like that it screams too fantasy for me.
Sure.
And then their tech isn't different enough from the Imperium to make me buy them. Like you could if you paint them right, you could run them with other Imperial factions, and you probably couldn't tell the difference.
No, dude,
100%.
the vehicles are hella distinct.
No,
and
they're
look
just bubbly looking. They've got bubbles.
Man, I disagree. I think they look quite different.
What I do like more, and I've said this before, I think on the squad episode, is the Mantic Games Company, Mantic Games.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Their Space Dwarves, I think, are the best Space Dwarves I've ever seen.
Yeah, the Forge Fathers.
Yeah.
I own a bunch.
Yeah, they look unique. They don't lift. They still lift some of those elements that make them look dwarfy.
Yeah,
but they're different enough that they're not like, yeah, why do you have a dwarf sigil? Why do you have a horse head?
Yeah, like so clearly dwarvish.
Right,
like,
exactly.
Yeah.
And like their vehicles look sweet. They have that blocky look that you're talking about, but they look alien enough that it does look different and it does feel separate.
Yeah, because I suppose like, you know, if you're closing your eyes and you're picturing Eldar, you know, it's like smooth.
Yeah.
And then when you picture dwarves, it should be blocky, jagged, hard edges.
Yeah, square.
You know? Yeah.
And their vehicles are bubbles.
I like the aesthetic. I would love to get some of those and paint them up.
Well, you're a real son of a bitch for thinking that way. To each their own. You know, we'll still have you back on the show because we love you.
Thanks.
But yeah, I'm not a fan of them either. I don't know. I don't like the models either. I think there's only one model in there that was really inspiring, and that was like the Grimnar guy. And all of it other just seemed like you said, Christian, where it's like, okay, so you got some weird sci-fi dwarves, but then you throw on such stereotypical weird Nordic stuff or
right, exactly.
Stuff.
Like, why would that be there?
Yeah,
and the Nordic thing also gets me too because their names and stuff. Like you have Space Marines that rely on the Nordic element. So then again, why did these? And I get it from like in.
People wanted a space dwarf, first of all. But part of it you could explain through that's part of the way the AI, maybe they took a bunch of settlers from Scandinavia when they went out, and that's where the miners came from. And they just incorporated designs. Or maybe
to me it's just all too human.
Yeah. I think that's my biggest complaint is they're humans. They should have been a Xenos race in my mind.
Yeah, go double down on the demiurge aspect.
Yeah, I always like the demiurge more than the squats personally. They're like they're being
Xenos. A distinct Xenos race, and that's me too. I think I would prefer them as a distinct Xenos race. Although I will admit, kind of the cool thing about them is that line that they ride between the two worlds, and that way they can be traders or they can be enemies. They can be mercenaries or they can be
they can trade or not. Yeah,
right. It does give you a lot of flexibility that a lot of 40K races don't have. So. As much as I think I would prefer a Xenos race, this does allow for stuff that you wouldn't otherwise be allowed to do.
It's not my biggest gripe, and I think they did it in a cool way, and especially with like they have their first truce, and we don't really know what that means, but they're kind of there. Like them being tied to humans isn't the biggest thing in my mind, but I think that's my only thing. I'm surprising. It's a preference. That would be a preference. Yeah. I was surprised how much I enjoyed reading through this. And I'm very much looking forward to the next one.
I don't like change. I was always like instantly antagonistic towards them, mostly because of their design aesthetic. You don't read their lore until they reveal the models first when they drop a new race, right? So right away, I was like a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
But after reading it, I've softened to them.
There's going to be more stuff to come out, so who knows?
Maybe if they're selling well. Yeah. Maybe they'll get squatted again.
One can hope.
GW is a fickle mistress.
Yes, it is. Yeah, you get Death Watch one edition, and the next edition
they're gone.
No Death Watch for you.
You're bitter. The indignities
they exist in this edition.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they do.
Only in our hearts, James.
No, they're in the Imperial Agents Codex.
Oh.
So you can
mash
do-
them all together.
Yeah,
with
they're
all the
you
other-
can use them with
Wow.
with
So
Inquisitors and stuff, which makes sense.
perfect. So no.
Look at this.
Yep.
Your shirt should say "I heart GW."
Yeah, simp.
That'll be my title for next week is GW Simp. James Workshop Simp.
You are Jim's Workshop.
Well, I
Made
think
flesh.
I think my closing thoughts are really I'm just excited to learn more. I was fucking hesitant, but pleasantly surprised with learning about these.
Yeah, I'd be in the same boat. I'm cautiously optimistic about digging in deeper, and this is cool. Like I said, it's a unique thing that we don't often get to do is learn new things together.
Yeah.
As friends.
Yay. Learning and growing. Hey, we're doing a Dad Hammer episode after this. If you guys want to watch, don't forget to join us in on that. We're pretty much reaching the end of our episode here. We're going to take some call-ins. I know there's a couple people in the chat room that wanted to call in.
I'll just put the link in the chat.
Oh yeah, that's perfect.
If you want to join in.
I guess that doesn't hurt to do it that way. Yeah, click that link and tell us what you think about the Space Dwarves, or if you have questions or comments about something else. Hey, have you been playing Space Marine 2 on the Discord? Do you want to join me in Moria and rebuild it? I'm just killing time till someone reclaim it. Yeah. What other things could we say? Maybe we'll just do the end of the podcast notes now. Hey, if you like the show, come check out Lorehammer Listener Lore. I got almost 200 episodes out of short stories where people are just sharing their lore. If you want to submit stories to that, you can do lorehammerpodcast@gmail.com.
More of a support circle for people who write bad lore.
It is. And then that's for them. And then I use it as a reading tool. Like, I got to be able to learn somehow.
You got to teach Mark to read. So submit your stories.
And we will do this together as a group.
Yeah. If you guys like me or you like Star Wars, head over to the Star Wars podcast. It's another podcast that myself and Jordan, if you missed that guy too, we do regularly do our episodes, and it's a little bit different style and format, but all about Star Wars.
Yo, did you hit 100?
No, 100 is our next episode. We're about to drop 99 next week, and
crazy.
Episode 100. I wish I could say, well, maybe we got something special cooked up, so we'll see.
Very cool.
Maybe.
Very cool.
I got jamescomplaints@gmail.com.
Yeah, so
that's
all we need from him, I think.
Send me your hate. I do have one to read. I'll pull that up here, and it is in Orc.
In Orcish.
In Orcish. I'm gonna do my best here. I'm not great at reading Orc, so if you hate it, that's just another James complaint for you to send to me. All right, here we go. Oi, James, this is a letter to have a good old wine, even though I don't think your show's too bad. The best bit about it show is that it's way better at reading, got more big words, and it's more proper spoken than any of the gits who've been on it. But my biggest beef right now is with that episode with the spiky warboss Kid Vect. You lot was banging on about how great it'd be if the orcs were stomping around Gamora, even though the big boss of Think Blackhawk already gave them a good crumping in their own zigging house in the documentary The Big Daka. The spiky city's probably still better for your elf than being stuck in Zog and Edmonton in the future. Make
That's
sure
true.
you get Eric. There's more research for the show, or I'll have to come down there myself and crump a lot of you. PP slapper.
Thank you, PP Slapper.
PP Nads slapper.
Sorry. I'd like the part about the documentary. I'd definitely watch a documentary on Komora. How to flay a human, the 37 different ways that we will do. We got a call in here. Corin, welcome to the show. I just clicked you in.
Hey.
Oh, shoot.
How's
Hold on,
it
we
going?
can't hear you.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, this is actually really surprising for me because it's something that I've been wanting to do for a while because I've been listening to you guys for a long time now. So I'm very happy to actually be able to talk to y'all.
Hey, it's good to have you on.
And it's actually my first time listening to stuff about the Leagues of Votann. My dad, he actually heard about them and wanted to get them, and he did get them once, but he then gave them away because he got out of the hobby, and unfortunately I wasn't able to get any of the painting or see how he would paint them. But he was going to go with like a kind of like a greenish ore for the blades and stuff because it was just how he thought it would look.
Sure.
And yeah, I definitely the reliance on the AI for them is definitely kind of an interesting thing for them, especially since they do focus a lot on like the vehicles, and it looks like they focus on vehicles and armor because considering how chunky they are in the armor.
Yeah, they do have like AI models that follow around some like little floating shooting things that come along with them.
Yeah.
It does beg the question: why do they need people like the Votann to go around if they just have
if you have
AIs?
the iron
Just make those things go around.
Because they're
doing
not
stuff.
slaves. They're equal participants in the society.
Yes, they all live in harmony.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. It's like, I was like, okay, so you guys have the AI, and then you have your guys. So why not just use the AI to go around, do all the mining, to do all the fighting, just to kind of reduce your guys' losses and stuff like that. So you can kind of just focus on building stuff and such.
Yeah. A dwarf's true passion, forging weapons and houses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, good points.
And I like how they actually they do have aligned with the Eldar a little bit. They have alliance, but they have a really big distrust with the Dark Eldar. It's kind of funny. So like, we kind of know what you do, but we don't want you to take us as those.
Yeah. Listen, I'm trying to trade you gemstones and you keep offering me flayed orc flesh. Like, this isn't the deal we want.
We have no use for this.
Yeah, it's funny. And thank you guys very much for allowing me on here. It's very happy.
Well, thank you for watching the show and calling in and joining the Patreon. We really do appreciate the support. And I love this aspect of the show now that we've kind of started. So thanks for joining and helping out with that.
Yeah. See you.
No problem. Thanks. See you guys.
And we got one more person here.
Hello.
Says, hello, how's it going?
Jax is back.
Not bad. Pretty good.
What do you think of the Votann?
Votann.
Are you buying a whole army or not?
James needs those upsells.
I don't know. That patrol looks really good.
Oh, yes.
Combat patrols are honestly not a bad way to start. So
That's how they get you.
that is how they get you. That's literally the game.
Their model range is pretty shit though, with like 14 units and like 3 of them are characters or something. It's atrocious.
What's the worst model in the range in your mind?
I didn't look through it that much, but probably the bikes, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, they're like these little tripod bike things
Yeah.
on little grab things.
Yeah.
I agree that that's kind of a weird one. I really like the berserkers though, the guys who just have the runes carved in their bodies and they just run around without shirts and huge hammers. That's kind of awesome.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
like that.
that's all you need is a
Terminator
huge
buffs.
weapon. No clothing.
Armors for the weak.
Yeah.
Armors for the weak, said by every dead warrior in history.
But anyway, as per usual, I do have a few questions about the vote. Most of them are
We'll try
based
to
on the
answer them,
guidance, but anyway, the big one I was gonna ask was as a Tau enjoyer, in lore, a group of a group of Votann did join the Tau Empire, and they actually joined the greater good. Thoughts about that? Like, if on tabletop they could be like allied units with like Votann or something, or
I don't know. I don't think you can play with Votann in a Tau army, but like you could do like if you were playing like just 2 of you are playing a game, like
Friendly
maybe,
game.
Yeah, a friendly game. You could throw some in, I'm sure, and just,
Or you could always rip off other stats and just use Votann models, right? Like use
count
Groot
that.
stats or Vespid stats for your winged dwarves or whatever.
your winged dwarves.
Shit.
Well, do something about
Yeah, like-
jetpacks.
No,
yeah,
that
like
could
in the
be a
future,
unit.
like if they could become like allied, because like a whole kin, like a whole like corporation of these dwarves join like the full greater good.
Yeah.
Just
and
thoughts about
that's where the Demiurge stuff comes from, is that, and they were playable in Battlefleet Gothic, I believe. They
Yeah,
had a ship.
even in like most recent video games like that Battlefleet Gothic 2 computer game, they were in that.
Yeah,
Like the
so-
Demiurge.
Ah,
So
You're just playing the wrong tabletop game.
Yeah.
Oh, we need to bring back Battlefield Gothic. That's every episode is going to spend some time
On Battlefield
petitioning. Give me Battlefield Gothic back.
Give it
I
to
want
him.
it.
Give me more 40K games. Come on, GW.
You know you want to.
Just from the chat here, kind of an answer to the bike thing is that it is. That's what I was going to say too. Is that it is the callback to one of the older squat models. They used to the old squats used to have like a biker theme.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's still a miscalculation. It looks like.
Yeah, slightly off. Yeah. Any other thought?
No, not really. That was pretty much it.
All right.
Anyway,
Well, thanks for
guys,
calling
for all you do.
Yeah. We're honored to be in this position.
We do a lot, and then also not a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Thanks, Jax.
All right. Have a good one.
See ya.
Well, how do I end one of these again? I usually have something heroic and inspirational to end off on. But this time, all I can say to you is just go buy minis. Go buy
Wait,
lots
that's
and
the
lots
opposite messaging that we had from last week.
Lots and lots of dwarf minis. So many, in fact. Yeah.
We're sending conflicting messages.
We don't give out
Yeah.
logical things here.
We got a couple Patreon members. Thank you guys so much for joining our Patreon. If you want to support the show, it really does help. We want to produce more content. I had this guy reach out on YouTube. He's like, hey, I can make your YouTube channel banging. And I said, no, go away. So I need your money instead. Because I didn't want to deal with that guy. So send me $1. A couple people did send us $1. You want to read these off, Christian?
Yeah. Thanks to Corin. Is that the same Corin that was on the call just now?
I would imagine so.
Okay,
Thank you so
well,
much.
Good episode to be on, Corin. Thanks. Namey, normal loyalist Marine.
That sounds like
totally
a fair
non-suspicious. And Jamie.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you very much for supporting the show. Help us buy better PCs, and maybe we can actually stream Space Marine 2 next time.
Yeah.
I think I could have, but it just had some weird things going on.
It's
Anyway.
just all fuckered.
Thanks, guys, for everything, and we'll see you next time.
Adios.